Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia.
What's up? Welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast. As always, we're bringing that Friday energy. I'm your host, Dagan Uncle Jesse Moriarty. It's a whole TGIF thing. See what I did there? Without further ado, just look at this group we have gathered here before us. Now, I'll give you a minute. I thought of this already. Soak in this specific panel and then tell me what's special here. Too slow, I'm going to tell you. Ladies and gents, this is a four-way collision of LSM podcasting worlds. We have Defining Duke, Sacred Symbols, Punching Up, and Knockback all on one show. All on one show. The only one we're missing is Brad, Mr. Bradley Ellis and Summon Sign. Thanks for fucking this up, Brad. But besides Brad, we have every LSM podcast represented here. We almost have a delegate from each and every LSM pod, and I think that's exciting. I like it. I like it, my friends. But listen, let's say hi to everybody in turn, starting with my third and youngest sister. Brace yourself for the internet's wildest food takes. Mama Micah, everybody.
Goodness. Wow. What an introduction. I got to tell you, I was lost at the TGIF Uncle Jesse joke. I hated Full House.
What?
I couldn't stand that show. It would come on like Nick at Night, and my sister and I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. We immediately switch it to whatever else was on. Like, we hated those people so much.
Wow.
As soon as that theme song would kick on, I'd be like, Bob Saget, get out of here. Couldn't stand Full House. He was the worst host of America's Home Videos. Like, we hated Bob Saget so much.
Wow.
Rest in peace. I got nothing against the guy. But so you make a Full House joke and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm glad. It's good to be here.
You see, Micah, I think of myself like as being a little too young to really fully appreciate TGIF, but you may be too young for that. I don't know. I was going to put it to everybody as I went around the horn here, Uncle Jesse or Uncle Joey, but apparently you're team nobody, just team anything but.
I mean, my mom always hated John Stamos anyways, you know, like she couldn't stand him and Mario Lopez.
Wild.
She hated them both so much.
What did Mario Lopez do?
I don't know. She was always making fun of him. She was like, that dimpled motherfucker. Like, she hated that guy. So, like, I don't know what was going on with him. She hated John Stamos even more. I don't know. I really don't know what the beef was, but I inherited the beef.
Yeah, you grew up in a den of hatred.
Oh my God, no, we're haters, like through and through. My mom, like, we'd be watching America's Home Videos, right? When Bob Saget was the host, we'd be like roasting him the whole time. And then they switch over to what was the guy's name? Tom Bergeron.
Tom Bergeron,
and he was better.
Right.
He was good.
We'd roast him too, you know?
Was he
like,
better?
We'd be like, boo. He was better.
I like Tom Bergeron a lot better, yeah.
Maybe he was better. He might be right. What other Latinos did your mom hate, Micah? Oh, wait, John Stamos isn't Latino, is he?
He's not at all. He's like Greek. He's Greek or something.
Oh.
Yeah, he's Greek or something, yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
you're right. That's
I'm
actually
surprised.
great. That's right. Speaking of Latinos,
Transition.
next up, coming at you from sunny Los Angeles by way of New York. I didn't say he was an East Coast trader. You said it. Chris Ragon, everybody.
Hello. It is. It's not very sunny here at all, actually.
No?
Right now it's 60 degrees and very cloudy, and it's going to be that way for the entire week.
That should be illegal.
That's
weird.
weird.
Ridiculous. It's warmer here.
Congrats. I'm really stoked for you. It's truly,
But still, if it makes you feel better, it's not sunny.
Well, yeah. I will say, for as far as Full House goes, I never got it either, really. Like, it was too sentimental for me. Like it would always end with like this weird like orchestral musical cue about how learning was the bright side of family or some nonsensical platitude like that. And I remember that was like my first inkling, because as a light-skinned like Hispanic person, I remember being called white a lot, and I understood it. But then I would watch Full House, and I was like, I don't know. This doesn't quite click with me in the same way that like Fresh Prince does. So I don't really know. I don't really know what's going on. Yeah,
that's an interesting. They were contemporaries of each other, right? Fresh Prince. Well, Fresh Prince came maybe it
was around the same time. It was like late 80s, early 90s, I think.
Yeah, that's right. That's about right.
Full House was a little bit earlier, but I know they were on the air at around the same time.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting juxtaposition. Yeah, Full House was very sentimental. And it was one of those shows I think people just kind of escaped into because it was so saccharine. Like it was just so sweet. Yeah. It was like this family, they're all living together. They have a problem, but they have like 12 different people on call to deal with this thing. Right? Because the whole thing is, like a lot of movies and especially sitcoms, kind of centered on a tragedy, right? Because Bob Saget's wife had died. That's why the uncles moved in to help with the kids, right? So the whole foundation is this horrible incident.
Yes.
Right? It's just weird.
It is weird, yeah. Right? It's also, I don't know, it was just too, it's like, oh, look at this big family supporting each other. It's like, what the fuck is this? No, what, you mean to tell me none of these people are busting each other's balls at all? That's insane.
Exactly. Like I was at the nail salon last week, and they always have something random on the TV. That day, they had Everybody Hates Chris just playing episode after episode, which I loved that show.
Great show.
And I'm watching it, I'm like, man, this is so relatable. But then I'm looking around, it's like all these suburban moms that are not even looking at the TV. And I'm like, how are you not watching this? You know? Oh, but if it was Full House or something, or they'd be watching it, I'm sure.
I liked Everybody Loves Raymond too, where like the parents were just like rude and like there was something like, I don't know. It was just too like flowery.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, I got you.
But what was the friend's name? What was the DJ's friend's name? Kimmy
Gibbler, I think.
Yeah. She should have got a spinoff. She was interesting because she was going to end up pregnant. She was going to end up on fentanyl. She was like the whole thing was good, right? That was going to go bad. It's going to go bad. She was in San Francisco. Like it wasn't going to go good for her.
Yeah.
That would have been a different shade.
Yeah. Talk about early outs. Yeah, she definitely had one.
I hope that girl didn't die in real life, did she? I hope I'm not.
No.
Okay,
I don't know. I don't care.
And speaking of Kimmy Gibbler, this is a perfect segue for our last, but never least, the Shinobi of Jersey City, holding it down for the Bronx. Let's put our hands together for Lord Cognito, everybody.
Yo, Stelly friends, how we doing? Good to be here. Thanks for the love and the pre-show. Obviously we had the family loss. Not trying to bring the spirit down, but I did want to thank everybody that reached out and said something real cool. And I was back from the island. I did a tour of every borough, picking up every family member in every borough in rush hour traffic.
Oh my God.
Wild.
Never fun.
Yeah, Bronx through Queens to the island, get there, and then have to drop the aunts back off some of the aunts in Brooklyn. So I'm like, I'm never doing that.
That must have been all day. That could have been all day. Was that all day?
All day.
All day long.
It took me to say the service was probably done around 8, 9. Like I didn't get back to like 11:30. I was like, this is crazy.
And that's probably for context for people that don't know like the Northeast, especially that area, that's probably linear 30 miles. Yes. That's not far.
Short distances that you will take forever to get through.
Yeah.
I will give Micah some last. I will say, in my experience of being in Boston for a little bit, Boston actually has worse traffic.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, for real.
Bro, them roundabouts.
Oh.
The roundabouts of death where nothing move.
Terrifying.
That city is planned so unbelievably.
It's like stagecoach era. Like, who designed this in the future?
It really is. It was like they were like, how do we build roads? And like just like put it's like it's like Venn diagrams almost. It's a bunch of fucking circles.
Yes.
Yeah, it really
like,
is.
What the hell is this? This is out of pocket.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
I agree.
And you were just there, Micah. And you guys were in the city. How was it? Because I haven't been there in 10 years, probably.
Oh, no, Boston sucks. I mean, I hate Boston. I don't like the city at all. It's cool to go for a day trip, but I never want to drive in Boston. I never have. Like, if you can take a taxi, you can take an Uber, I'm going to do that. I have no wish to ever actually drive anywhere in Boston because it's hell. It is. It's like, it's not like New York where it's like these streets are neatly arranged in rows. It's like, no, if you miss your turn, you can drive 3 miles and try and get back around. Like, it sucks. It's not how a city should work. There's so many one ways that it's just like, no, you can't go back around. Like, no, Boston is hell. And I try to avoid going there. You know, obviously I love the spirit of the city, because it's like, oh, my sports teams and all that. But God Almighty, I hate all cities. They're all bad.
You're brave for coming after Boston. You know, I don't know, man. That Boston is where the stereotype of New York people is, I think. Like the really rude, like genuinely evil people. Yes. Like it's wild. It's crazy. Like I'm surprised Bill Burr doesn't like manifest in your office behind you and strangle you with a red sock.
Oh, but see, he hates it too. Like that, I love Bill Burr, and he also hates the city. We all hate it. Yeah. Everybody. Oh yeah. We all hate it. We're all cold, unfeeling people up there. We all hate it, but we like it because it's ours, you know, and we like the people because they are also cold and unfeeling, and they leave you alone. Yeah. Like I enjoy that aspect very much. But the actual, like the layout of the city, like Boston has cool stuff, great restaurants, whatever. But the layout, the like traversal of that city, ridiculous. Terrible.
All these one-way roads, you know? I mean, come on.
Holy shit, that was pretty good, Chris.
What? Bill Burr. He's very easy. He's very easy to do. It's just angry Boston in high pitch. And that's just Bill Burr.
I'm not even good at a Boston accent, but it's because my own is too strong. But you know what I love is Bill Burr with his Sherry's Berries ad when he was sponsored by them that one time. That kills me every time.
Oh, that's so cool. No, Chris is right, though. There is something about Boston is the kind of the realization of what people think of New Yorkers and New York. Yeah. It's really, that's really concentrated. That attitude is really concentrated in Boston. And I'll tell you, there's a rivalry. There's a weird energy between Philadelphia and Boston that not a lot of people realize, where Philadelphia really plays that up, like how Boston kind of does the East Coast image wrong. You know, because usually here the beef between New York and Boston, especially with baseball, but really with sports, right? Philly and Boston, you think of as the satellite cities, the less important cities, right? Big cities, but not New York, right? But the Philly-Boston thing is interesting, and you only really realize that if you get into conversations with people from Philadelphia. Like there's a definite, I don't know how Bostonians feel about Philadelphia.
Curious about this.
But there's a weird energy. There's a weird anti-Boston energy in Philadelphia if you can get to the bottom of it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's weird.
This dynamic. It's kind of fine. Really I know weird. About this.
We all got to coexist on the East Coast, and I think Boston should not be part of it. You know, I feel like New York almost gets in the middle of that.
Yeah.
You know, which is interesting. I love that kind of shit. But listen, we're going to jump into the topics today. Our friend Lord Cog has an early out. I want to start with his topic. It's an awesome one. I was just saying before we started rolling the cameras here that I don't even know how we didn't think of this one yet. Hilarious. And that being said, Cog, take it away, my friend.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. It was just like, we all got a ton of personalities of people we interact with, friends, family, whoever. But there's always that dude or that chick you just cannot stand. The dude you hate. Like I was just thinking about, I was like, what are the personality types or just the things, the quirks in general, you know what I'm saying, that kind of get us going. So I'll jump it off. Like, for me, I got this one friend, I ain't gonna name and shame him, but I have this one friend who, like, we'll be in a party chat, and you ever have this friend, Chris, where it's like, they know everything and they're never wrong on anything. So it's like, you can just talk about random, it's like, well, you know, the historical fact on that is really X, Y, and Z. It's just like argumentative for no reason. Like sometimes we just want to have a good time. Everyone's chilling, good vibe, but they want to fact check you on everything. And it's just like, bro, this ain't the time for this. Like, we chilling. It's a good laugh, that kind of thing. So I was thinking about that personality in general. And then, like, you know, in conjunction with that, the same personality that sometimes can't admit when they're wrong. And you got them dead to rights on something. And I'm like, no, but actually it does say this, right? Do you want to pull up the document? That kind of thing. So I'll get petty with that personality because I like to make sure that they are wrong and everyone knows they're wrong because I know it bothers them. So anyway, I'm just throwing back, you know, to you. I actually throw it to Chris because I was curious about you setting this off first. Like, what are those personality types that either grate you that you can't stand or either a friend that got a quirk and it's just like, bro, oh.
Yeah, it's a good question. Although I feel like both of those people you just described as me on some level. Because I do, like, it's not that I'm not argumentative about, like, stuff like where, like, oh, I'm right. But people have come to me frustrated that I'm correct all the time. Like, about certain things, they're like, God damn it, I have to text Chris that he was right about this. I'm frustrated that I have to do that. But it's usually not about, like, something that you can look up. It's usually, like, advice. It's like, hey, you shouldn't do that. And then they do it. And then you're like, Chris, fuck. You're right. And you're an asshole for it. And I'm like, yeah, fair enough. But honestly, I don't find that I hate many, like, I don't run into many people that I dislike on that level anymore. I think I used to when I was younger. Like, there was this kid who would just insist that he was our friends. Like, he would sit at our table at lunch and just conversate, but like as if he was there. It would be like if in the middle of like Breaking Bad, suddenly there was like a guy named Glorbo and he was like friends with Jesse and they just treated him as if he was always there. And it's just like, you're not, you've not established yourself enough to do this. Also, we don't really like you that much, but we're like trying to be like nice. And like, okay, yeah, okay, I guess we're not going to kick you out because, like, how do you even do that in a not public, but like an open cafeteria where, you know, like, I don't know how to do this, but please go away. And for years, he would like sign up for like our after school, like dodgeball teams and stuff. And I'm like, what are you doing? How do you not understand that you're not part of this vibe at all?
He didn't get the memo.
He didn't get the memo. I don't even remember why we didn't like him. I just think like there was no reason for us to be friends at all. Like, there was no common interest. There was no similar sense of humor. So it wasn't necessarily like, oh, what a shitty person. It was more like there's no reason for us to gel. But I grew to hate and loathe him because he just didn't he didn't get it. I think I snapped at him one time. Like it was like 3 years into this. Where he was like, hey, I was inviting people to like my birthday thing. He was like, hey, when's your birthday thing? It's like, you are not invited, man. Like,
Did you say that?
I did.
At the moment, I was the truth came out about how the group really feel about him. Those are the moments.
No, it was just like, because I didn't want to be mean or anything, but I was just like, dude, you're not invited. I said this verbatim. I was like, I don't like you. And it's nothing personal, but I don't want you at my house.
It was a precision strike. You just had to do it. There was no chemistry. Everybody refers to
and he kept
romance.
Going, by the way.
No way.
He kept sitting. He kept it up. And at that point, I was like, yo, I'm about to throw down.
What? That's not even like not picking up on social cues. That's like just something else.
Yeah, and like looking back on it, I don't believe that. I don't think that there was anything like he didn't strike me as like, you know,
spectrum.
You know, he was just a normal guy who just didn't understand that we just didn't like him. That's what frustrated me the most. That's what frustrated me the most, because it wasn't even like there was like some reason that I could be like, oh, well, it's because this. It's just like, no, you're just inept. And I really couldn't stand him. But I don't know. That's like a really childish kind of like, I don't really care today. I think the only type of person now that really bothers me is I will oftentimes, or not oftentimes, but sometimes I'll be over at my friend's place. And we usually have this thing like every Friday. We just take like a little bit of an edible, sit in the living room, just listen to music, crack jokes. I usually like bring my notebook so I can write down some of the funny stuff.
That's dope.
And it's fun. It's like a good, like, weekend kind of tradition. Sometimes we'll go out. But sometimes this person shows up who is, I like this person generally, but like when we are in that state, it's just like a wild harsh on the buzz. You know, it's like
Vibe
bringing
kill.
the root, like a massive vibe kill where it's like, yeah, I remember this band. And it just like all these facts, and again, and it doesn't stop. Like it's a continuous, like there's no end to the conversation, and we're all just like, "Yo, I'm just trying to listen to this music," or like I'm just trying to like riff with everybody about
That's
like
a good one. That's a good one.
I don't know. We usually riff about dumb nonsense, but then it's just like, oh yeah, I remember that year. That was the year the Boston Red Sox killed Saddam Hussein or something. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what he says.
He doesn't get the vibe. Is he the newest member of the group? Like, is he the least familiar dude? Is
Sort of.
Is he the newcomer?
He's there the least consistently. Like he's there probably like maybe like 30% of the time. You know, like as far as like the amount of times that we hang out. So it's like it's not really that big of a deal. But like when it's there, it's like, okay, I don't like having to be alert in a serious conversation when I'm like on an edible. Like that's not where I'm trying to be really. And yeah, but that's really, I guess the consistent point in here is like a failure of people to read the room. I guess people who can't read the room, I guess is probably my least favorite type of person.
I like that.
Yeah.
The social norms. Yeah. The boundaries. That person that doesn't understand. Yeah. I get that.
I can't fathom it because I'm constantly thinking about like what other people are thinking of me.
Yeah.
In like a social environment, I'm always thinking, it's like, all right, I can't go over there right now because they're in a conversation. I'm not going to interject. What do I do with my hands? Like I'm always thinking about this stuff. So the fact that people like meander through life not thinking about that at all, like how they might be just completely like throwing a wrench into a person's deep calm, is crazy.
Yeah, it's foreign to you. Chris, I gotta say, I really wish your first story ended with, and I still can't shake the dude, he's in like the apartment next door. Like I really wanted to be like, this guy's still around after all.
That would be a good joke. But unfortunately, like thank God that's not the. I hope he's doing all right or whatever. I hope he found a group of people that vibes with whatever the fuck his absurd vibe was. But like, I'm glad he's not a part of my life at all. I actually told it. You know what's funny? I actually told this story like on a really, really old, like one of my first podcasts ever, like in like 2014 when I was like delving into it. And he messaged me because he saw it. It's like, hey, are you talking about me? And I was like, yes.
Yo.
But like, why are you? But like, I was like, why are you angry? I didn't name you or anything. It just seemed like such a weird. Like, first of all, additional reason why you're not part of my group or part of my vibe at all. That the idea that you would even think that this is a worthy avenue of confrontation is insane. You were weird, objectively.
And he's still listening to you.
Yeah, he's still listening. Back. That's crazy. I was like, you're subscribed to my YouTube channel? After I told you I don't like you, you're not invited to my birthday?
Dude, some girl interrupted shit. Like, there's something you gotta watch yourself. I think enough time is clear, but I would have worried there for a while.
It's been many years.
Good,
I heard
good.
I'm not gonna get into that. Yeah, I don't know. I'll get another message.
Yeah, you will.
Listening right now. You get the call.
Yeah,
You're gonna get some anthrax in an envelope.
Oh no.
Yeah, the story didn't go like that. You didn't tell me off like that. I was like, I don't know, man. I remember. I feel like I did. I feel like I was very clear.
Checking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good one. So I was gonna say, Micah, I'm curious. Any personalities that rub Mama Micah wrong or just quirks?
Oh my God.
Let's get to it.
I hate so many people. The one thing, Chris, next time that you're doing edibles with your friends, you got to bring up the great molasses flood of 1919 in Boston. You got to bring that up and see if that fact guy knows about it.
Oh yeah, I bet he does.
People I dislike is most of them. And it's just, I just know myself, and I just don't enjoy the company of a lot of people. The number one thing is people who are too serious, which I just find a lot. And I'm not saying you have to be funny to hang out with me. You don't have to be funny, but like, I can't stand the type of person who thinks they're better than you just because they never feel joy or mirth, and they have like, everything's like, they're constantly like go stressed out, like to the point of like, you're not allowed to be fun, because of them. Like they're, you're not on their level because you enjoy life at least a little bit. Like that's the number one, is the type of person who like, they're like, oh, how are you doing? It's like, oh, good. Like, I saw a really good movie. And it's like, I don't have time for any of that. And it's like, all right. Well, like, what the hell have you been up to? And it's like, it's just one of those things of like, and this falls into a lot of different categories, whether they're a parent, whether they're like just a workaholic, like with no kids, like just there's this type of person who finds some sort of joy in being miserable all the time. And that's my least favorite type of person. That's definitely one of them. Is just the person who, for some reason, doesn't want you to feel joy because they don't either. And it's just, that's number one, because it's the type of person who almost makes you feel like, like you're a kid or something for enjoying the cake at the birthday party, right? Like we're literally having someone's birthday. I'm happily eating cake, and they're like, ugh. And it's like, I don't know, man. How are you gonna just like scowl at all of us for enjoying delicious cake?
That is annoying.
That's the number one.
That sounds like your arch nemesis, Micah, for sure. Like knowing you, that's your arch enemy.
This cake reminds me of the elephant's foot in Chernobyl.
I just learned what that was like last week, because
really?
I never learned about. I knew what Chernobyl was. I didn't know no elephant's foot, right? And I saw it on Reddit, and I was like, "What the hell's that?" And I started Googling it, and I learned a whole bunch of weird shit about Chernobyl. But we didn't learn about that in school or anything, so it was just
for sure.
This is all random. But yeah, it really is. It just comes up of like, I'm someone who is fairly depressed and anxious a lot of the time, so I try to find joy in the very small things. Hot dogs, round hot dogs, just being out at the grill, my stupid little hobbies. Like I really do try. And so it's just one of those things of like, my natural inclination is to be sad and mopey, and I try not to be. But when you end up hanging out with one of those type of people, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to fall into sad and mopey now. Like I'm getting, and that's the biggest danger of it. It's even less about being annoyed by that type of person, and more so just about what it does to your own energy, and feeling like you're just sapping away my joy right now. Like that's exactly like that's a big
all
part
Twitter
of it.
for me. Twitter is all that. What the
my God,
yeah. Why are you having fun? What's going on? What do you mean you're enjoying this game and you like it and you put a screenshot and you're enjoying yourself? Like that, Twitter to me is everything you just described. Sometimes miserable for no reason. I'm like, damn, I just said I like something.
Exactly. No, I post a picture that I was making some steaks, and the comments would be like, oh, that you're going to get cancer from that. Like, and all that type of stuff. And it's like, I'm going to get cancer from probably 100 different things. I had lead poisoning already. All right. Like there's not a lot that I'm afraid of at this point. Okay.
You had lead poisoning?
It's one of those things I had lead poisoning as a child.
When you were a kid?
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. I'm all right, I think. But,
I don't know.
Colin and I blame everything on the lead poisoning. When I have some sort of like thing that I don't understand, it's always the lead poisoning. It'll be like,
hey man,
any sort of like social faux pas. I'm like, it's the lead poisoning, okay?
Sorry.
Like half my brain folds are full of lead.
It's all the lead, man. Honestly, man, that those chips of paint that peeled off the wall, they were pretty delicious.
They're delicious.
It wasn't even the paint. It was magazines. It was Time magazine.
Really?
It had lead in the ink back then. I'd like to think I'm part of the reason why they got rid of that, because I would eat magazine pages. My mom thought it was weird but harmless. It was not harmless. It was full of lead. And then I had to go to the doctor every week for a very long time to get blood drawn until I was back to normal. So
what does it taste like?
There's layers to this now.
I ate magazine pages. Is not something I expected to hear today.
Micah, you didn't grow up in the 50s. Like, I never knew this.
Oh yeah, no, it was an interesting thing. I think I was maybe preschool age. I think I was 4 when all this happened. Because the thing is, I remember it. I remember that it happened. I was old enough to remember going to the doctor every week, and they had to do the finger pricks and get the blood test like every week for a long time. So I was old enough to remember it, young enough that it's like it doesn't bother me so much anymore. For a while, it was like, I hate the doctor. Like, fuck that guy. And now I'm like, oh, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. The memories have faded.
You're
you
over
know?
it.
Exactly.
Still
But
the
what
90s.
remnants of the lead poisoning are in my brain? Who knows? Who knows? We can't know the damage that it's done.
It's unknowable.
The other type of person, though, that I want to bring up
Let's go.
is the person who belittles your hobbies. It goes along with the serious person, but there's the person who thinks that because they are reading, Moby Dick, and because I'm reading Stephen King, that they're better than me. It's like, you're just reading, popcorn books. And it's like, I'm enjoying the fucking book. All right. Like, just, I can't stand the one up type person who's like, oh, you watched Fast and Furious. I watched Interstellar. And it's like, oh, fuck you. Like, I don't care. Like, movie's a movie and I just want to enjoy it. Okay. Like, I just want to enjoy the movie. It's not about some intellectual, thing here. I'm just watching a movie. Okay. Like, that's all I want it to be. And especially the people who are like, oh, video games, waste of time. We talked about this previously, but all hobbies are a waste of time. They're supposed to be. It's supposed to be a segment of your life that is just to bring you just happiness and that's it. Like, exactly. You're supposed to have something in your life that is leisurely. Mine, like when it comes to reading, I try to challenge myself periodically with like a classic literature book. I just don't enjoy it though. Like, I really just don't enjoy most of them. I love reading horror and things like that. And it's just like, I just enjoy modern books more. I also do admit that like, I don't want to have to put this level of effort of like, I'm Googling 5 words per page because these people are speaking this like weird fucking English. Like, and it's just one of those things of like, man, can't you just be happy that I'm reading a book? Why does it have to be like that your books are superior to mine? Like, why can't you just be happy that I'm reading a book? It's not like I'm reading like Chuck Tingle novels, okay? Like, I'm reading, these are books. They're regular books.
You're not reading Everybody Poops, like it's...
Hey, that's a great book.
That's a banned book now, Chris. You can't talk about that one anymore.
That's right. That's right. I forgot about that.
But just the type of people who, belittle your interests and hobbies rather than trying to find common ground, right? Like, it's just, there's a type of person who, I'll mention like, what'd you do this weekend? I started a new game I really like. And they'll flat out just say, I hate video games. And it's like, I know, but you asked me what I was doing and I wasn't going to lie, right? I wasn't going to say I was out, I don't know, being a big sister to some foster kids or something. You know what I mean? I'm not going to lie about what I'm doing, but you don't want to hear it anyways. Versus it's like, why can't you just say like, oh, cool, I watched a new thing. Like, you don't have to say you play video games, but you can just counter with what did you do for entertainment? There
you go.
Like just have the conversation. Because in regards to what I brought up in the last episode about like the guy at the wedding who I said like, oh, you like sports at all? And you just said no.
Love that.
And I saw a comment where they were like, well, I don't like sports. What should I say? It's like, you could say no, but I like movies. Like, you say no, but I like this. I mean, just give me something. Give me something. All right. Like, I'm putting my hand out. Don't just put your dick in it. All right. Just say something. Give me something.
Quote of the day. Quote.
Okay. Like, give me something to work with here. We're both adults. You're not 10 years old. You know, it's like, I'm asking you to have an original thought,
Yeah. If people knew that I don't think people would give you as much shit about the books you read if they knew that you went from eating them to reading them. I think
the reality though, the reality. Yeah. I mean, the reality of me going from being like a feral child to the, high functioning adult you see today.
Seriously.
I feel like they'd give me a lot more credit. You're absolutely correct.
That's evolution.
A little more grace.
Mike is amazing. It's never a dull study with Mike. But I respect, because what you said about the person who, what I call them joy stealers, in reference to especially like hobbies and things that you're personally interested in, they may not be. That's why I'm single. Because I refuse for you to come in here and tell me that what I'm doing is stupid, or video games, and on the I get the joy stealing video game dates and partners, and I'm just like, oh, this ain't gonna work.
Oh, dude, no, like
yeah.
I once dated someone who wasn't a sports fan. And I will tell you, I never made that mistake again. There's
Mm.
nothing wrong with you not liking sports,
Exactly.
but you can't be with me because it's a big part of my life. And you
Yep.
don't have to, even if you don't like sports, it's the person, that belittles it. It's like I dated the type of person who would say like football's stupid and all this stuff. And it's like, look, man, like I like to watch this for 2 hours every week. Just go fuck off. All right. Like why can't you just let me be happy?
Yeah, just let me be happy. Like, you know what? That's his thing. Right? He's enjoying himself. Look at him. Look at Kyle. He's having a ball. Let him have this joy. And I think a lot of people struggle with it when it's not into. And I there's tons of stuff that people are either friends or they like that I'm just not into. But I sit there and I see what it does to them. I'm like, all right, you know what? That's cool. Like they're in their pocket right now. They're loving life right now. And I think a lot of people don't have that acknowledgement. Go ahead, Dave. You was about to say something. I'm sorry.
No, not at all,
100%.
dude. I'm agreeing with you guys. What I don't get about that whole thing is that why can't you be a couple? Person A has their thing, person B has their thing, and then use that as your opportunity for your me time. I like video games. I like crocheting. Okay, well, you do the video games. I'm going to have my own time crocheting or hanging out on the links with the boys playing golf, or I'm going to go bowling. You're not into it? All right, then you do you know what I mean? It's like,
that's Dave's time. He doing his thing. All right, cool. I'm doing. So you don't like smother each other too. So it's a good balance even if you're not both into the same thing.
It's built in. It's built in alone time, and then you could be a healthy couple because you don't have to be with it's nice if you have everything in common, but I feel like that's so rare anyway.
Yeah.
And then to hold a person to your standards of just taste of things to do and enjoy is so strange to me. I mean, I couldn't be any more different than my wife. I mean, we do have things in common, but I think what keeps the relationship so healthy is that we are different. Like she's not interested. Podcasting is so cathartic for me because she is not interested in anything I'm talking about. I mean, Constellation is a little different, but the nostalgia podcasts and video games and talking about movies, like in an intellectual way, she could give a shit less. And you know what I mean? Honestly.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for us.
Yeah. Not fair. Dang, I was gonna transition and save you for last. I figured you'd be the one I wanted to hear from the most, but I wanted to save that for last. So I need to know the person.
When I got your email, I thought of a person immediately. Immediately knew who I was going to talk about. It's still such a myth. The whole thing, the whole relationship, if you want to call it that, is such a mystery. And then I thought of bookend people, like a person from my youth and then a person more recently.
Ooh,
so the kid, the first one I wanted, and you know what weird about this is that all three people didn't like me. And I still to this day had and have no idea why they didn't like me. Like there was no real reason for it that I knew of. So the first kid that I ran across this when I was a really little kid, like 8, 9, 10 years old. There was a kid in the neighborhood. His name was Bradley. And he was just the littlest shit. Like he was like the 80s version of the little, Lord Fauntleroy, well-dressed kid in the sailor suit with the giant lollipop and the beanie, like the brat, the consummate brat, right? He was the one in the neighborhood that got everything first, spoiled rotten. Now, for juxtaposition, I grew up with one of my best friends who I talk about a lot. This kid, Tommy, was kind of the good version of Brad. Like Tommy got everything. Spoiled. Both his parents worked, very affluent. I think his parents felt guilty for being away a lot, so they compensated by giving this kid everything.
Got you.
But he was so sweet about it. He would share his toys. He would just share his joy, like, oh, I got this thing. But it was never in a bragging way. It was always like, let's like dig this thing together. He was like so inclusive and everything. Brad was he was like the evil version of Tommy. He would get a thing and then he would act like he was lord of the neighborhood, right? And nobody was allowed to approach him. Nobody may approach. Don't fuck with my shit.
Can't approach. Damn.
He gave that energy. So I knew as a little kid not to even sort of massage his ego even further. So I never acted like what he had was a big deal, even though I coveted everything he had. He got the new Transformers, right? Cog. He got the new G.I. Joes. He had everything first. Like sometimes before I even heard of it.
Yes.
And I was like, what the fuck is this now? But I would never play into his ego and act like it was a big deal. I'd always play it cool. But eventually he got that Matchbox die-cast Voltron came out. Now, it's important to say this was like 84. This was $100 toy at that time.
Yeah.
Like, it was serious. My parents were not getting this for me. It was like it was like one of those things where I wouldn't even ask.
And Voltron was hot as fish grease back then. What?
It was huge.
Before? Bro, let me tell you, y'all don't know, Chris. I'm telling y'all, this whatever Power Rangers was to kids or whatever. This Voltron, like our generation get mad at Power Rangers, like it's a bootleg. That's not the Voltron. Form arms and legs, and I'll form the head. The cat cartoon. Go on, keep talking.
No, but I like kind of making, kind of calling in Power Rangers as an equivalent, because that's really what it was for its day. It was like we had Star Wars and G.I. Joe. Transformers was maybe in the offing, but Voltron was the first thing. It was the first imported thing from Japan that really hit. Yes. It was an introduction to anime. It was an introduction to giant robot. In a weird way, it was an introduction to a lot of kids to like kaiju, giant monsters. If you didn't know Toho and Godzilla, then this was your introduction to all that stuff. So it was huge, and everybody loved it. And it was like that. It was like that sort of 5 distinctive separate toys that formed another bigger toy. It was that whole thing. It was a craze, really. And I just knew I wasn't going to get it. Like, unless I asked for it for Christmas, and it would be like one of my only presents. And I was never going to use up that bandwidth. So that was the one time where I acted like I have to give this a shot with Bradley. Like, I need to interact with this thing. I need to play with these lions and he was not having it, And he was that dude. He was that guy that just for some reason, you know what I mean? It was just like one of those guys where I didn't know why he was such a dick. As a kid, I was like, why is this kid like this? And I do remember my parents, it was an education for me at being at that age. I'll say I was 9. I do remember being frustrated. My parents probably caught on to what was driving me nuts. And eventually they sat me down and were like, look, basically said to me, his parents are assholes. You know what I mean? Which was like a thing of like, oh, okay. So he has asshole parents. That's where he learns his behavior. And it was like a one to grow on moment for me. It was like, oh shit. Okay. That's how that works. I get it. That type of thing. And then that leads me to this other thing. There was this guy, Chris, I worked with. This was many years ago. This is probably the mid 2000s. Was that an animation studio?
His name is a red flag. I'll tell you that much.
Watch out for that dude.
He went by his last name, plural, which was weird. Like, that was what everybody called him. They said his last name, plural. I'm not going to say it.
Oh.
Dude was so obnoxious. And I was working on a 2D show at the time. So everybody in the animation studio, this was in New York in Midtown, everybody in the studio was a 2D animator. But we just started a new show and they needed a 3D cat to come in. And he was doing all the modeling for, I think I was working on I think it was the new reimagined Speed Racer cartoon. That was actually ill-fated, but it was for Nicktoons, I think, or initially. At least it was going to be. And he came in to sort of model all the vehicles in the backgrounds for the show. And then all the character animation was 2D. So he was already hot shit because he was the only 3D animator there. He was super talented, super skillful. And I think he also put a small sort of hand pick team together in his little 3D department. So he had this little fledgling 3D department. And he kind of acted, he's one of those dudes that walked around the office sort of holier than thou, that type of deal. Arrogant, like and aloof. But that's not even what really bothered me. I think what really set me off was my first interaction with him. We shared an elevator leaving work one day. And we never had the occasion to meet or introduce ourselves over. There was probably like 100 people at the studio. And got in the elevator and knew who he was. And I said, yo, what's going on, dude? And he just, said, what's up? And he just completely ignored me. And there was no way, no response. I don't think he even looked at me. And it was one of those things of there was no way he could have not heard me. It was just me and him in an elevator with the door shut going down.
Damn.
It's like, what the fuck? What the fuck is this? So it kept happening that week and the week after. We kept happened to leave the office at the same time. And at that point, I'm like, I want to see if that was an anomaly or if this is the real. Said hello, ignored me. It happened 3 or 4 or 5 times.
And y'all the only 2 in the elevator?
And yeah, only 2 in the elevator.
Yo, that's
because we both were I worked late at that time. I remember it was before I was commuting full time to New York still, and it was before Lilia was born, so we didn't have kids yet. So I was grinding. Back then, I always left the studio 7, 8 at night, and so did he. And we were probably the last two left, and it just kept happening that way. It wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
And so I realized, all right, this dude's being a dick. And you know what's funny? Years later, this is a deep cut, but this is the exact energy. So I have to share this story that people know. There was an episode of The Sopranos, okay, where Ralphie, the character Ralphie, was sent to Florida because there was a hit out on him. So they needed him to go down to Florida to kind of ride it out for a while. But the hit was already, I don't know if remember if it was New York or some rogue Jersey entity that put the hit out on Ralphie, but he needed to lay low for a while. But the hit was on, and they tracked him down to Miami. And there was a guy who played the hitman. He was an Asian guy, Chinese guy, very stern looking, very tough looking dude. And they show a scene where this hitman's obviously like, yeah, I'm here. I'm on his trail. Shows it from his perspective. And they call off the hit at the last minute. The guy's riding the elevator down to where Ralphie is at the pool or whatever. They call it off, and the hitman's all pissed because he's all worked up. He's going to do this thing. Elevator doors open. The hit just got called off. Ralphie walks in the elevator. And they share the elevator ride down, and they're just staring at each other, just mad dogging each other. And they don't even know, Ralphie doesn't even know what the hell's going on. He's just looking like, why is this guy looking at me like he wants to throttle me? Gets off the elevator, and Ralphie turns around, and he's like, what the fuck is your problem? That was the whole energy between me and this guy. Guy never said a word to me. Worked together for months. It was the weirdest thing. It was like, why is this guy? I remember saying to my boss, who I was really close to at the time, the owner of the studio, I was like, I'm going to fucking kill this guy. Like, who the hell is this guy? And I don't get like that. I was like, what is his problem? But apparently he was perfectly fine to everybody. It was just me. Just you. It was just me.
He singled you. He had like a
Really
Kendrick
strange.
Level beef with you.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have been a work thing because I posed no threat to him. He was a 3D animator. I was a 2D guy. I don't think I was even animating at that time. I might have been a character designer on that show. I don't even remember. It had nothing to do with him. Our sort of departments didn't
intersect. Yeah.
So it was weird. But then you know what? The exact same thing happened to me when I went. I won't say his name, but when I was working at Sesame Workshop, my longest job ever. I guess I was there for like 8 years. We had our small little in-house animation team. We had a bunch of cubicles on this one specific floor. And maybe there was 8 of us. And I was on the outermost end of this cubicle, sort of right on the main thoroughfare where everybody walked by on my floor. So I got to see and interact with a lot of people from all different departments. There was probably like 400 people there at Sesame Workshop. It was a big place. Many floors, actually, too. So there was one dude that just walked by all the time. I do remember his first name. His name was Kurt. And I didn't know where he worked or what he did or how high up in the company he was, but he would always walk by and stare me down, not in a friendly way, never with a smile, but just like clocking me. It was like that type of thing, like almost angry, not even like passive or something, but like again, like kind of mad dogging me, like ice grilling me, like constantly, day in and day out. And I would talk to my friends, like, at lunch or at coffee, or whatever. Who the hell is this dude? And they would tell me, and again, everybody was like, I don't know. I don't have a problem with him. He never does that to me, type of thing. And to this day, I never got to the guy just acted like that towards me. And it was really weird. It was really random. We didn't know each other. But I remember how this was really funny. One day I'm in the bathroom, just taking a tinkle, right? At the urinal. Dude, my back's turned. Somebody else walks in at an adjoining urinal.
I would hope so.
I'm not looking who it is. I hear a crunch as if somebody's eating an apple. I have to look over. There's a guy taking a pee next to me. There's one urinal in between us while eating an apple. Just chowing down on this Granny Smith apple, clutching his hand while taking a pee. And it's him. And I'm like, what the fuck? I've never been so confused about something so small in my entire life. But from that moment on, I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with this guy. I'm glad he doesn't.
That's a psychotic. That is a psychotic idiosyncrasy.
It was nuts.
Insane. First of all, very unhygienic. But even beyond that, what? Have you ever?
I mean,
have you ever eaten in the bathroom?
So weird.
it
was
happened
the-
at my job too. There was a guy who brought soup to the bathroom.
What?
And he would bring soup to the urinal, and he was known for it. And it was just one of those things of like, because I wasn't going in the men's room,
Right.
but people would come back to the office and be like, he was in there eating soup again. Like, he was the type of guy. He was the type of dude that he'd see your shoes under the stall and be like, oh, hey, how's it going? And it's like,
we're
no,
not having
no.
a full-on conversation while we.
No.
Exactly.
That's
It's like, come on,
crazy.
man. Like, he was that type of guy. Everyone liked this guy, though. That was the difference. Was this guy?
That's weird.
Everyone really liked him. They just didn't want him to bring soup to the
But they
bathroom
knew.
anymore.
Well, that was the thing, Micah. As soon as that happened, first opportunity for coffee, which was probably hours later, I got my friends around. I was like, dude, you never guess what happened. Because they already know this Seinfeld-esque arc that's playing out with me and this guy who doesn't like me for no reason, right? That's been happening over a course of months. Like, this is not a new thing. It's like, why? And the thing was, similar to the guy in the elevator, I would at least initially engage with like a smile and a hello. Never reciprocated, never a word back.
Damn.
Still looking at me like really weird. Like, did I fuck this guy's wife? Like, what is happening? You know what I mean? Like, I honestly don't know what is happening, but he was acting like that. So of course I'm the gossipy little bitch. I'm telling my friends, oh, I guess who did this? And of course they guessed who it was. But from that moment on, then he was the butt of everybody's joke because he was this guy that was eating the Granny Smith apple while taking a pee in the bathroom. And you know what the funny thing is? He just recently, I really hope he doesn't hear this, although it would be kind of funny. He just recently started following me on LinkedIn. And I'm like, that's really weird. That's a really weird way to resolve this
fucking
story.
Bizarre.
That's
Very, very strange.
That would piss me off, I think.
Yes.
That'd be like, wait,
follow?
what? What? After all that? No, get out of here.
Get out of here. You ain't getting that follow. I'm like, you going to stay there with the unconnected.
It's like you said, right? It's a chemistry thing. Like, there's just something that it's not, everybody talks about this with romance and relationships, but I think it's a thing with just friendships too, or would-be friendships, or people that you're just not compatible with. Like, there's something that plays out. There's an energy that plays out. With all three of these people in my life, I have no idea what it was, if it was this cosmic thing or if it was, but it was just one of those things where I still to this day with all three of them, the kid Bradley maybe was just a brat, but especially in my adult life, I have no idea what their problem was.
The adults are the weird ones when that happens, but
Very
I don't know.
strange.
Maybe you remind him of somebody that he just can't stand. Because I'm definitely
possible?
like I remember I went out with this girl like many years ago, and it was like a first date, and like everything she did reminded me of this person I couldn't stand, and I was like, it's not even. She was fine. It was just like I cannot possibly endure this. God bless you. I'm so sorry.
That's a good one.
I almost gave it away, but that happens to Larry in the last season of Curb. I'll say no more. But that exactly.
Oh yeah, I've seen. Wait, did that happen in the last season of Curb?
Yeah, there was a character from past seasons that reminds him of a character.
Oh, right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
By the same exact actor. So that's a funny. I mean,
it's funny.
You know what the crazy thing about those two dudes too is, like, I could have been that guy for them. Like, they could be having this podcast and I could be that dude.
Right. Exactly. I always try to think about the world in that way, where you are somebody's object of absolute hate somewhere. You know, like your mom is somebody's your mom is someone's nemesis. Like, someone hates your mom, like, for sure. Like, it's someone can't stand your dad, and that's fine. Everybody's sometimes you have to be someone else's villain, even if you're not even fucking aware of it. You know, people need that, I think. I think people need those rivalries in some way. I don't think I have that really anymore. I think I used to with that kid who just refused to understand. But in my adult life, I don't think. Maybe I just don't notice that people hate me.
Yeah.
Which is great also.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it could be, I'm back in the office now and it's been years. I mean, it's been 5 years. I'm 7 weeks deep, 8 weeks deep. But you could see, like, the dynamic of seeing the same people day in and day out, whether it's people you work with, in a really tight way, or just like the people downstairs in the lobby of the building. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that whole thing, it's like a reminder of, like, okay, this is the people on the train that you see, the people that you say hello to, the people that you don't, the conductor, You know what I mean? Like, it's
Mhm.
so funny, like how it, but I don't understand. Like, if somebody, even if I didn't like somebody, I didn't like the cut of their jib or something, or if
You
I had
wouldn't
like
treat
an
them like shit.
actual reason for not liking this person and they said hello to me, I
You'd
would
still say hello.
acknowledge it in some way.
Yeah.
I might not give the most emphatic, friendly hello back, but I would say what's up or something. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have the heart to not engage, especially if that person doesn't know you don't like them.
Yeah.
That was the mysterious thing.
Right. I always do the little put your lips away and nod. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You see someone in the hallway at work. That's the move. That's the
Yeah.
move.
Yeah.
That's a good move.
I like that.
It is
That's a
good.
move.
It communicates. It's like a Rorschach test, though. So people can like read into it, whatever they want, but like it's really just like, I think it would be weird for me to look at you and not do anything. So this is just what I'm going to default to. Sorry.
I'm so worried it's going to happen to me again now that I'm back in the office, though. I'm very leery of it. Like, I realize, like, oh my God, is that guy not like me? He didn't say hi. Like, am I going to have this? Is this going to be the third one? Like the third? But no, so far, so good. Like, it seems like even when you're the new guy, people don't always know your vibe. So they don't know the energy of approaching you and stuff. You know, so it's like, oh, you know, is this guy congenial? Is he more serious? Is he lighthearted? Like, I feel that, like, people trying to size me up.
Yep, I'm trying to read you.
But with those two mysterious people, it's like, what was that? I'll go to my grave not knowing, probably.
Dagan, do you eat food in the company fridge that isn't yours?
No.
Okay. Just throwing out possibilities, because that's somebody that I would glare at in the elevator. You know what I mean?
That's the great one. Especially if you know it's them. That goes on. The funny thing about that is that does go on. I haven't seen it at my new spot, but that does go on. And the other funny thing is I have done that to roommates, certainly. And then it's beef. You know, and I was in the wrong.
You know you out of pocket.
Mom and dad would go to, Sam's Club or Costco and get the case of egg rolls, and I would eat half of them. You know, because I'd be like, that's the way I grew up. You know?
See the truth coming out nowadays.
Coming out.
But never
we learning.
I'm starting to side with these people.
No. You have beef for a reason. I don't know. This is good.
That's good shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm saying shit. I loved all the answers. It was a great.
Yeah, that was a great topic. I feel like I'm going to, it's one of those things too, where I feel like it's a great play along at home topic. Like everybody listening has one of these, that I love calling it that dude.
Yeah, that dude.
That dude is good.
Is it ever a woman?
Yeah.
It is. Okay, Micah,
well, I think it's such a dude. It's weird because dude is very gendered, but also completely not at the same time. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, I have female friends. I almost said I have girlfriends, which would be a problem. But I have female friends who I call them dude. You know, just generally, it's been adopted. It's like, hey guys.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
Just kind of been adopted to everybody.
I call my sister dude all the time. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, no, we're used to it though. So it's when we were kids, especially we were watching Rocket Power. All right, we were wanted to be pretend skateboarders. Okay, we were very into it. Into it. We're like, oh, we lived 3 hours inland in Massachusetts, but we're surfers now. Okay, so like we're feeling this. So everything was dude. Everybody was dude. And it's kind of just kept up. Now that I'm an adult, I'm still call everybody that pretty much.
Love it.
All right, Micah, I love it. I love that topic. Here's the thing. I think I'm going to bring up the rear with my topic.
Let's go.
But I don't know whether we go to Micah or Chris next, because these are both fun topics. I always try to establish some sort of cadence where we could go from serious to funny, but these are all fun. These are all kind of lighthearted this week. Micah, I might go to you next. You have a good one. Another one of those topics a year or so in where I'm like, how did we not do this topic yet? But we didn't. I checked. I think I checked. Sometimes I check and I still miss it. So I'm going to put that qualifier in here. It's like my ADD is so bad going down. We have for those of you who don't know, we have a Constellation sort of list to keep us honest of topics. Is that James Solar that put that together for us?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. which is great. It's a great little handy dandy guide to say, like, all right, we got this, or we could iterate on this topic. We could break this out for another topic. But I checked and we were in the clear. Now that's give that an 85%, but I think we're good to go with this, Micah. And kick it off, my friend.
Yeah, so my topic this week, I just asked the gang to, come prepared with an unforgettable quote. Just give me something that, whether it's from media, whether it's from real life, give me something that rattles around in your head, just regularly. This is actually one of the rare times that I have something like relatively serious to share, because for me, this is about my dad. We both love books. And in 2022, I started reading Stephen King, which is one of my dad's favorite authors. I was always, wary of getting into those books because they seemed scary. And I ended up really liking them. But so my quote is from Pet Sematary, which is one of my favorite books now. And there's no spoilers here. But it's one of those, this was a very weird turn of events that it made the quote even more meaningful. The quote itself is, "The soil of a man's heart is stonier. A man grows what he can, and he tends to it." I liked that quote when I came across it in the book. I remember I just kept reading it over and over. It's a lot of people will say that male authors don't write good women, and the joke will be like, she breasted boobily down the stairs type thing, and there's some truth to that. There are some male authors that write very one-dimensional women, but the same is true about female authors who write about men. They're often not complex. Mm-hmm. They aren't emotionally there. And what I love about Stephen King's work is that he writes very complex male characters. Pet Sematary and The Shining are excellent examples of that. And that quote, what I like about it, he's not saying that men lack emotional depth. He's not saying that men are unfeeling, but he's acknowledging that for a lot of men, for whatever reasons, be it society or your upbringing, it's, forming deep connections with your loved ones takes more effort, like gardening in rocky soil. It's not that you can't do it. It's not that nothing will grow. It's that it takes a little more effort. A lot of that being, maybe it's the stress of being the traditional breadwinner and not having enough time to reflect on your own emotional state, to take care of your own mental health, for example. Maybe it's just how you were raised. If you had the type of father who's like, chin up and, boys don't cry. If you grew up with that, then you are dealing with some rocky soil there, and it's not going to be as easy to grow, emotionally mature, emotionally present relationships, right? So that's what I loved so much about that quote, was just the complexity of it. I also love gardening, so it was a perfect, metaphor there. And it also made me just think about my dad, and it made me think about my dad for the first time, not as my dad, but as a person, and thinking about, my dad and I are very close, and we joke, that like I'm the son he never had. But the reality is that I am a woman, and our relationship is not the same as a father-son relationship. It never quite will be. We're extremely close. We talk all the time, but we'll never really have that connection. And this quote, for just one of the first times in my life, I really saw my dad differently. And I just felt like, wow, like this is me seeing my dad as a person, and not just his dad. I'm seeing him as who he is in the world and who he is interacting with other people. And the interesting thing that happened, though, was that one day I'm texting my dad, and I got it here. So my dad texts me, and, we're talking about hockey. And I said, yeah, hockey's been great. And I said, I've been reading Pet Sematary. It's wicked good so far. Because, of course, that's how I would say it. And my dad, completely unprompted, said, "A man grows what he can, and he tends it." Like, that was the first thing that came to his mind when I mentioned the book, was the same exact quote that I was stuck on too. And of course, I don't have much emotional depth. So I never told my dad, like, oh my God, that's the quote that I reread several times.
Oh, you didn't tell him that?
I didn't say shit.
Oh, no.
Because, well, he'll find out now because he listens to the show.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it was just one of those things of like, I remember like being like, oh my God, like, here's the quote that made me think of Dad, that made me realize that my father is not just my father and that he's this person out in the world and has, and here it is like that. I just mentioned the book and that's the first thing he says to me. I just really couldn't get over that and how cool it was that we took the same thing from this book, because it's one of his favorites too. So that quote, I think about it a lot anyways, just as I'm getting older and there's various life changes. I'm married now and interacting with Colin. And there are times when, women traditionally more open with your feelings, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
And sometimes it almost comes off as like, is your dad like cold and unfeeling? No, it's just that he's more reserved type deal. Like, oh, is your husband just like completely aloof, and uncaring? No, he's just typically more reserved, not as forthright with those feelings and emotions. That quote, in a very strange way, because it's not the type of book you'd expect to take some life lessons from, it did help me understand a little bit more the complexity of the men in my life. And I just really enjoyed it. And it's a fantastic book that I recommend to anyone. It's not just about the horror of it. The book, in its essence, is more about grief than anything, and just the like hyperbolic lengths that people will go to avoid the uncomfortable feelings. Like, that's really the core of the book, is like, how far would you go to avoid dealing with something deeply uncomfortable? And it's just a really good book if you haven't read it. But that was mine. And it's just something that has really changed my life in a very weird way, in an unexpected way. But I want to open it up to you guys, Cog, because I'm curious what direction you'd go with this. Whether did you have some, some corporate wisdom from Don Matrick? Did you have some family wisdom? I'm curious what direction you would take this in.
Funny you say that. Oh, yeah. I love this topic because this particular quote, I don't even know who it's from or where it originated, but it definitely sparks a lot of conversation because the things that I support, this always happens to. So the quote is, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And for me, as a person who historically either roots for the underdog or is just loves things that are sometimes not successful. Obviously, I'm on Defining Duke, and Xbox is always giving us stuff to talk about with this quote. Yes. So it's just interesting, and I always tried to understand the science of it. And I think there's a part of me that, one, I don't necessarily gravitate towards what everyone else gravitates towards. So if everyone's like, this is the more popular thing, or for the most part, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's cool. But I really like this thing. And I make this thing my own, right? And I gravitate towards it. And for whatever reason, the things that I am sometimes the most passionate about, the things I love with 100% loyalty, energy, they just find a way to do or mess up in the most cataclysmic, embarrassing ways. And I have to eat through this. So Dag, you will appreciate this as a Met fan, right? Growing up, I grew up in the South Bronx. I literally, from the roof of my building, could see Yankee Stadium, right? The issue was in the 80s, right? The Mets were actually good.
Yeah.
And they were the actual, kind of dominant team.
They
right?
were.
I saw the rise of the Doc Goodens and the Strawberries and all that. And they actually won an improbable World Series, the Buckner through the legs, as sorry, Micah, if you remember this, but Boston fans do not like this. But for us, it was the most magical thing. So I pledged my fealty as a young, sports fan to the Mets. I'm like, this team is mad. The amazing Mets.
That was an exciting team. Hernandez, Mookie
Wilson. I remember these things, right? And these are the last things I continue to remember and hold on to because they never win again. And they always lose in the most embarrassing fashion. Pop-ups dropped, collapses, chokes, you name it. And I have to go to school and you eat this every day from Yankee fans. You have to eat this, right? So that's one aspect of my life. The other thing is probably, again, I'll just bring it to gaming and console, which what we do here at LSM for the most part, is again, I was the everyone had Nintendo around me. But I was like, all right, that's cool. I like Mario, all right. But this Sega thing, this is mine. You know what I'm saying? I went to the arcades. This is me. I get them, and the Master System was not really a popular system at all. Dagan, as you would know, everyone had an NES.
Yes.
Genesis was my moment. But there was always these peaks and valleys. And what I'm trying to get at is that what the funny thing about the code snatching defeat from the jaws of victory is finding improbable ways to not have success when things are laid out for you. And I think that thing is kind of interesting with the organizations or the things I follow. But the other thing I do glean from it in a positive way is that I realize like sometimes like I am really loyal to and passionate to the things, you know, I love. And sometimes I think there's a part of me that's like, man, when they actually do well, you cherish it more. Cause you're like, yo, remember where you were at that moment when it actually happened for whatever it is that you're passionate about. So yeah, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. I guess that's my little cathartic way of dealing with the pain. I can laugh at it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, all right, this is what we do. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, let's move on kind of thing. So yeah, that's mine. Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
No, I'm feeling that very much, especially in regards to sports, because right now, all right, I'm watching the Bruins, you know, and the Stanley Cup, you know, playoffs, okay, and they're falling apart. It's just one of those every year we do the same dance of, oh, we have a fantastic season, playoffs, terrible, and they have made it to the second round. But like if they need to win tonight to force it to game 7, all right, we're down in the series. And it's just, you look at them play and you're just like, how did you do this to me again? Because you were so good all season. And then you just fall apart. And it's one of those, I love that my team, I'll never, you know, I'm not a bandwagon fan, of course. Like they're my team. I'm going to watch the series to the end. But like, man, it just sucks. And you have to laugh at it. It's one of those things. You have to laugh at it because it's like everyone else is laughing at you. So you just got to deal with it. You know, the Bruins, especially, just inconsistent. I won't get into it, but there's just so many things wrong right now with how they're playing. And it's a mess between that and being often having interests of like, look, man, if we just got one more Viva Pinata game, I'd lose my shit. All right. And I'm watching these companies make games. I'm like, I'm telling you, this would be a hit. I'm telling you, this would be a hit, but they won't touch it. They won't touch it. They're too afraid of its power. I even tried to get Maddie to use his special powers where like if Maddie says he wants something, usually it happens. And he was good. He tweeted that he wanted Viva Pinata. It didn't happen. It still didn't happen. Even Maddie couldn't make it work. So I don't know what else to do at this point, but no, Cog, that's an excellent one that applies to many facets of life, really. And especially too, I'm seeing as well, Disney sort of admitting that they put too much money into streaming, for example, like things like that of like, this is one that you will see resonating just across different industries and various things of like, man, you see the person who is just like on top of the world and making like one crucial mistake.
Yeah.
So good. So true.
Well, Chris, my fellow young man, what have you brought us today in your brown shirt?
Yeah, well, why'd you single out the color of my shirt? I don't like that.
Well, you know,
Earth colors.
Well, brown's one of my favorite colors, but that often gets made fun of because who likes brown, right? And that's the whole thing,
color.
right? People, I know it is, but when I say it's one of my favorites, people are like, favorite? It's brown, and I'm like, yeah, it's brown. You know, it's the color of chocolates, the color of my family. I like it. You know, it's good. It's a good color.
It's a good coffee table. Like, you know, like I don't get it. I don't get that at all. But I don't know, man. Like I thought about this topic a lot, and so many things went through my mind, and I don't know if I could really source a lot of them because I don't remember. I know some of them are like well known, and some of them aren't. A lot of lyrics went through my head too, of like songs that I remember like really like meaning a lot to me when I was especially like in high school and like early college. But I can't remember who said this to me, but I think it was my dad. But he's like, all effort yields positive results, even if that result is failure. And that's been something that's been rattling around in my head for like a really, really long time, because it's easy to kind of forget that failure is like a necessary step to success because it is so crushing in the moment. And I don't know, I'm glad that I had that level of like, okay, like I had that rattling around, because I think sincerely without that understanding, it would have been a lot more difficult to continue doing anything that I wanted to do. And again, even if you do fail at certain things, it's like, okay, you've picked up this experience, you've learned something, you've adapted to a skill set, like maybe you've developed a skill set even further than you had before through this failure. And I don't know. I think it's weird. Like failure is a big fear for a lot of people. I actually have a fear of failure and success. I think success terrifies me as well. So like I like to be exactly where I am forever. I don't need any more, any less. But you know, I don't know. I think that's it's a really important thing, and especially because I feel like it's really normal to be anxious or to like overthink, or even to be like, oh man, things are bad or things could be better. But like you are kind of better off. Even if that's true, you kind of are better off. You're better off just existing as if it wasn't, you know, like if you're like 30 and you're like, oh, it's too late to learn art or whatever. Even if that was true, the only way you really fail at doing that is just not starting, because the person who tries and fails and tries and fails is definitely is going to succeed more than the person who doesn't try at all. And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of clunky in my head as I'm trying to like manufacture it, but it's been a very, very important like keystone for me. Where, you know, there's a lot of times where I've tried, like I did stand up for like, I did 3 stand up sets before the pandemic, and then the pandemic fucking happened. Like the same week, I think like the week after I started doing it. Oh, wow. And then like, so everything was ripped out from under me. I was like, God damn. It felt like the universe was telling me, it's like, man, you don't get nothing. Nothing. You're going to have to stay. You don't do anything. Don't try anything. Because if you try something, the world's going to fucking end. That's what it felt like. And, you know, I guess the key bit of wisdom is just keep trying, because, you know, there is no real failure outside of stopping, like not attempting to try.
Yeah. Very true.
That's some excellent dadly wisdom. Like I try to think, I don't know if my dad's ever said anything quite so profound, but you know, with some type of relationship we have, we're usually talking about like, hey, you see the Patriots play? But that's really, really true. I mean, it's 100% a fact that if you don't even give an attempt, you'll never get there. You know, it doesn't matter if you suck at drawing when you start. It doesn't matter if you're terrible at, you know, playing guitar when you start. You will never get better if you don't even pick it up, if you don't even try. I have felt similarly when I left IT, for example. I felt like it was a waste of time. Like, well, what did I just do for 4 years, you know, and went to college for this, and I had this job. But the reality was that, like, well, it did give me something. It's still life skills. It was still learning a lot about how, you know, how to draft emails correctly, professionally, you know, how to communicate professionally with others. Like, it was still a lot of very valuable skills that I use now. I just don't have to deal with people who don't know how to, you know, turn on their computer anymore. Right. And so it's like, it's still valuable. I can be very hard on myself with things like that. Of like, oh, that was a waste of time, but it never is. It's never a waste of time to learn a new skill, to try something different, whether you stick with it or not, whether you hate it or not. It's prove something about yourself that like, hey, I gave it my best shot. And it at the end of the day, it's just like, yeah, you know, it wasn't the right thing for me, or this actually isn't what I want to do, but it's never a waste of time. Every experience in life just adds to your little stats there, you know, and you're just always just, life is an RPG, and every time you're just adding little points on there, you know.
Right. I also, I think generally, like, the idea of like, I don't think either everything is a waste of time or nothing is kind of how I feel about it. Where it's like every moment of your time, every moment of your life is wasting time because it's the only thing that you can't get back. Like you're spending that time, whether it's like if you spend a whole day playing video games, not looking for work, that's time you didn't spend looking for work. But did you have a good time?
Right.
That's did you have fun? Realistically, that's all that we're left with when we leave this earth is like the good time that we had.
Yes.
So why not maximize that good time?
Yeah. No, I agree with that too, because it's also, are some people doing very important work with their lives, trying to cure cancer, things like that, of course. But we can't all cure cancer. No. All right. Like I don't have the fucking capability to do that. It's as well as things like we can't all do that stuff. But everybody can contribute something. And whether it's just making your friends happy, whether it's just, making your mom smile, like everything that you do has some sort of value usually. And it's like, yeah, that's life. Life is about many things, but you have to find your own happiness and all that. It can't just be about, meeting the expectations of like, well, if I'm not, becoming a brain surgeon, it's all a waste of time. It's like, I mean, really, we're all just meat sacks wandering around this earth. We just got to find a little bit of, the happy chemicals in the brain, and whatever sparks that, you're like, I'll stick with this. I like this thing. This is good. So no, that's some very good advice, Chris. I'm not going to apply it to my life because I don't need that kind of positivity, but I'm glad that you shared it, because when I get, all mopey and I'm like, I don't want to do this, then I'll feel even more guilty about it. So thank you for
Toxic
that, Chris.
positivity.
That was very good.
Yeah.
I like
Hate it.
Effort is good.
Hate it.
Yeah, I like that.
Boo this man. Boo. Dagan, our resident oldster, what wisdom do you have for us today in your little Snoopy shirt? See, I'm not just calling out Chris's shirt. I can't tell what Cog's shirt is.
Destiny achievements.
Sweet.
I wish I hadn't asked. Dagan.
Both dogs, though.
What has Snoopy got to say to me today?
Yeah. And surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, little amount of wisdom for my age. But you know what? First of all, you guys are really inspiring me. I want to address something that each of one of you said. First of all, with Chris, and paraphrasing advice from your dad, like I look at you, Chris, I look at Kyle, I look at Maddie with his success, I look at Cog and the boys with Iron Lords. Like you guys did embrace, each of you, and I know you a little bit, all of you a little bit, like you guys all did embrace that thing of fortune favors the bold. Like you would never be where you are if you didn't have a little bit of that sort of risk-taking gene, or at least bandwidth. Like you're putting your time into an endeavor of your own creation. And I find that very inspiring, because it's something I know I've mentioned it on, podcasts before, but that's something I really struggle with. I kind of, there's a part of me that loves working for the man. You know what I mean? I work for one of the biggest media companies in the world right now. It's kind of cool. Like I like seeing that letterhead on the check and everything like that. But the older I get now, and I'm a lot older than almost all of you, I mean, even considerably older than Cog, who's next in line, right? You realize at this age, like, yeah, that's great, but you know what I mean? Like, what's your echo? Like, what's your legacy? Is this going to be your legacy that you worked for Universal? Like, where's your own? You have so many of your own ideas. Now I'm talking to myself. You know what I mean? When are we going to put pedal to the metal on this kind of stuff? So I love what you said, Chris, and I'm always very mindful. It's nice dealing with you guys week in and week out, because it's a constant face-to-face reminder of like, dude, it's time to get started, And Cog, I love what you said too about standing for the underdog, because that's something that registers with me, not so much of being a Yankee fan, Evil Empire fan, obviously, but just that sort of thing. I think that programming, that sort of level of, that's your circuitry. Like that's just baked into your DNA. That's just who you are. You know what I mean? It's like beyond articulation. Like that's just something that really, I always like that too. Like I always was drawn to like the character in the movie or the series who's like second in command. You know what I mean? Like there's something weird about that. There's just something really, it's a draw, just part of like your fabric. And then Micah, you were talking about Stephen King. I had to research this. 76 years old. I know how prolific he still is. 65 books published. Now you do the math. since he's been a professional writer, that's more than a book a year. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. And you know what's cool about that? I think I've mentioned this recently. He's friends with, right, one of the least prolific writers everybody's very frustrated with right now in with Game of Thrones and everything like that. So that dynamic, that friendship of like the least prolific writer, everybody's like, where is this guy's shit? And the most prolific writer are like besties. I just kind of love that whole dynamic. It's so cool. But for me, when you sent this email, it was sort of like what Chris was saying, it was kind of shades of the same thing. It was like, wow, there's a lot of these. And I think part of it, and thinking back, was I was raised by three very wise people. And my two grandparents, my two maternal grandparents specifically, and my dad. Just even when they were young, I think all three of them lived a life. I think they accrued a lot of experience, and they just had a lot of wisdom and always imparted it to me. I think part of it was me being the oldest, and maybe I got it the most because, just the dynamic of being the oldest of four. It was like I understood the most, but also maybe, was kind of shouldered with the most responsibility. Although I call her my older sister, our sister Dana, who's the older of the two sisters, still a year younger than me. She was kind of the one that kind of shouldered the responsibility. She was the mother hen, really. And I was maybe acted the youngest of everybody. But it was those two specifically who kind of imparted the most wisdom. And it's weird because I kind of like collected a life of words of wisdom, words to live by, mantras, but there's always two. It's not this artificial thing. You only know this over time. There's always two that I call up that I find applying to my life over and over again as an adult. And the first one is something that my grandma said to me. I remember I was 16 years old and I had a best friend who I grew up with, a couple of best friends from being a really young kid, 4 or 5 years old. And then when I got into junior high in 6th grade, I didn't know this kid previously because it was a case of all the elementary schools merging into a junior high school, into a middle school. There was a whole new group of people. And I sat with this guy at lunch, and his name was Pat, and we just became fast friends. We were so alike. I had established long-term friends already, but never a friendship like this, where we were just clicking on all cylinders. Like it was compatibility overload. We were just two peas in a pod. And I loved him and he loved me. And we spent all junior high school and high school together. And then had a massive falling out as juniors in high school. And never, to this day, he got in touch with me, as it turns out, this past Christmas. He reached out to me on social media and I was so happy to hear from him. I hadn't talked to him in 30 years.
Wow.
And it was one of those falling outs where we now both don't even remember what it was over, but literally never talked to each other. Spent 5 years together with each other day in and day out. And then all of a sudden it just ended. And I always really regretted that. But I remember the falling out, our mutual friend, we were 16, probably going on 17. Our mutual friend had a house party on the weekend. And we were both going, of course. And our sort of conflict, whatever was going on with us, again, I don't remember what it was even over, but sort of reached ahead at this party. And we got into a blowout. And I left the party and I didn't have a driver's license yet. I called my mom to pick me up from the party, and I was really upset. And for some reason, my grandma was with her. This is late at night on a Saturday, 11 o'clock at night. I saw my grandparents weekly, but they never stayed over our house. So I don't know what my grandma was doing out at our house on a weekend. But she was with my mom in the car when they picked me up at the party, got in the car, very upset, trying not to talk about it, but they saw on my face that something was wrong. They're like, what's wrong, babe? And I explained the whole situation to them. Again, just kind of like really beside myself. And my grandma said to me, this too shall pass. And at that time, I was like, what does that even, like, I didn't know what it meant. In the moment, it just seemed like, it seemed really callous to me. It was like, I don't even understand what that means, but I know I feel like shit. But it stayed with me. And that was the first time I realized that she would say that every so often. And then my mom would say it too. Again, I guess getting it from her mom. And it was this whole thing. It was the whole sentiment of obviously what it means, right? Is like this in the moment, this feels like life or death. Everything hinges on this. But in the long term, it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. It's going to be water under the bridge. And I sort of carry that with me and apply it to my life still to this day, no matter what I'm stressed about, what I'm charged with, what I feel anxious about. You could kind of apply that and just say, all right, like right now, this seems critical, but a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a year from now, it's not going to matter. You know what I mean? And just sort of also, I think an underlying thing with that is just knowing that you have the stuff, the tools to deal with whatever comes along. You know what I mean? Like this isn't the first time you're going to call up that mantra, and it's not the last time, that type of thing. And the other one, that's really the big one for me, although there's a lot, especially for my dad, but that's the big one that I feel like just keeps coming up. That's one that just kind of is always in play, I feel like. The other big one is that whole thing of, and I'm not even sure who said this to me, because I could think of everybody from my dad to like Nas, like a Nas album, but that whole sentiment of you can't take it with you. You know what I mean? And I find that one's so valuable in that you're grinding, right? My career, everything I'm worried about, it all comes down to finances, right? Money in, money out. We need this. The kids need this. We got the mortgage. We want things. We want to buy a summer house. Everybody needs new cars. No matter everything, the grind, the work, the career, everything. It all comes down to money and finances, right? That's just kind of like an engine of life. That's just modern life. At least for us, we're not living somewhere in the jungle, with loincloths and shit like that. Although sometimes it might be easier,
Shout out to the
So the whole thing propelled by money and finances and stuff. And the whole thing of like, oh, I need to work. I need to do this freelance job. I got more podcasts, that whole thing. And then you realize, all right, this is all for money and stability and to get comfortable and everything like that. But then if you just could sort of adopt this philosophy of calling that whole thing into play, like you can't take it with you, then it's like, well, is it better to work the freelance job this weekend, or is it better to spend the weekend with the kids? You know what I mean? What's really, because, none of this stuff is going to be, whether it's the things that we need or the things that we want, we can't take it with us. We're not going to take it with us under the earth, like the ancient Egyptian kings tried to do. You know what I mean? It's just buried with them, so it's like that whole sentiment of really what that comes down to, or what that sort of equals to for me is, how are you spending your time? Do you really need the extra $1,000, $2,000, or is it better to just go away for a week with your family? And then just trying to balance that. Obviously, you need to work. You need enough money to take care of everybody, right? But you know what I mean? It's like that whole thing. Gandalf said it, right? All we have to decide is what to do with the time that's given to us. It's like, all right, well, and you know what? That all comes down to balance too. You know what I mean? Okay, I need to make a little money. We need a little more money. We want to go, I don't know, whatever the thing is at the moment. We want to go to Hawaii. We're going to need an extra 10 grand. Okay, let's plug away at that. But let's find the balance in that. Am I going to work for the next 6 months and just literally not see my family? Or can I kind of find some time to have both things? You know what I mean? But that whole thing of you can't take it with you, that's a great reminder of like, do I really need the Breitling watch? Like, seriously, is it? I would love to have one. But you know what I mean? Like, is it, that whole thing? And again, it's a check, because I think I saw my family. I don't know if this was growing up on Long Island thing. I don't know if it's kind of this woven in keeping up with the Joneses thing, especially living in the suburbs. I live in a place very much like Long Island. It's the same thing. It's just not on the water, You get caught up in that whole thing. And I think my parents did, for sure. You know what I mean? We need the house. We need the bigger house. We need the pool. We need the cars. We need the matching vanity license plates, all that kind of shit. I mean, I understand it, because I fall into that trap too. And I do think it's a trap. So if you could just kind of really have those mantras that you could always just call up and be like, you can't take it with you, then it's a reminder of like what's important, what's like really ultimately important, So that's really it, man. Those are of all the wisdom. I feel like if my dad heard this, he'd be so disappointed, because he's imparted so many gems. But those are the two. Those are the two that they're in constant rotation for me. And I think they help. I think they really help a lot, because they keep things in perspective.
Yeah, keep it grounded.
Yeah.
Perspective
Absolutely.
is important.
Yeah, and first of all, Dagan, Jerry could not possibly be upset because you mentioned Gandalf. So there's no you basically quoted him anyways. So that counts. No, both excellent quotes. This too shall pass, especially what that reminded me of is I saw a post recently. I saw something positive on social media for once. How about that?
Wow.
And the gist of the post was pick, your life right now. There was a version of you 10 years ago that wanted to be right here. And it is that reminder of like, yeah, despite the difficult days and, depending on what's happening in your life, family stuff, whatever, there is the version of me 10 years ago that would be absolutely thrilled to know like, oh my God, I got married and I did this and this and this, and I have a dog and like all these things. And, you do have to frame it that way sometimes of like, oh yeah, my past self would be flipping out to know that like, hey, you finally got that Impreza that you always wanted, and maybe compared to the neighbor's Mercedes, it's nothing special, but to Micah from 10 years ago, that was like an absolute dream. Still is my dream car. I love it. But it's like framing it that way of like, your past self worked really hard to get to this point. You might not be at the destination where like you really still want to be at yet, but you worked really hard to get here, and you do need to sometimes just sit down and savor it, like because not only will the difficult parts that you're experiencing pass, but you're also experiencing a lot of good things at the same time, and just recognizing both sides of it of like the difficult parts, you're going to move through those, and also acknowledging that like where you are right now is where your past self would just be over the moon to currently be.
Yeah, respect your past efforts by appreciating where you're at right now. Yeah,
absolutely.
Love it.
No, well, that's a great way to say it. You guys, you brought some strong wisdom here, because honestly, I did not know what to expect out of this group, whether we'd get silly with it. I didn't know. This was honestly like very good. This was a little therapy session, I feel. So no, this was nice. So thank you guys, for putting in the effort on coming up with these quotes. Because it is one of those things of like, you ask someone a question like that and you do think of a million things. I came up with the topic because I had something specific, but I was like in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, there's so much out there, but you guys did very well. Thank you.
Yeah. And Micah, you know what? Also, like, I really appreciate hearing about the relationship between you and your dad.
Yeah.
As somebody now who has a 17-year-old daughter and who I've always been very close with, but the dynamic is changing now because she's a young woman. And I always find a tight-knit father-daughter relationship very inspiring, because I think it's just a little tougher than a father-son relationship. It really was never for me, because I always knew there was always something weird about me that I always knew I would have daughters. In fact, I was surprised when I found out we were having a son. Never really pictured myself with boys for some reason. But there is something built into the father-daughter thing that makes it a little odder, because it's a different, you're coming from two different genders, right? So the dynamic is maybe a little trickier, but I like having that hope of like that we're going to hold on to that closeness as she grows up and now goes off to school. Especially this morning, she got an fender bender for her first time on the way to school. I'm going to need that energy. Fun. $3,000 worth of damage to the car.
Hell yeah, dude!
So I'm going to need to hold on for a little
Love me
bit.
A fender bender, man. builds character.
Yeah.
Sent me the picture, and she was like, my wife, it actually happened really close to school. So my wife just left the building and went to pick her and her friends up because they were on their way in late for some kind of keystone test or something. And my wife sends me the picture. Front end's all crumpled. It's all fucked up. But thank God everybody's all right. It's like, I think it's fine. It's purely cosmetic. I could see that the radiator's crushed and it's leaking all over the ground. I'm like, Helena, it's not cosmetic. It's not cosmetic. The radiator, you see the liquid, the green liquid all over the ground? That's engine coolant. It's not dripping from the bumper. What is happening? So anyway, so now I need to hold on to that more than ever. Right. I'm having a dad moment because I knew, what's funny about it? I don't even want to get off on a tangent, but I knew. I went to Dunkin' Donuts to get a coffee. I didn't make myself coffee this morning. I'm driving home when she left late, and I'm thinking, I knew something happened. It was just like that sixth sense. I'm waiting at a light and I'm like, I hope she made it to school all right. Get the phone call from Helene in like no frames, in like 10 seconds after having that thought. And Lily got an fender bender. I'm like, God damn it.
Did you describe time in frames?
Yeah. How many frames per second?
I love that. That's awesome. That's so animation brained. It's amazing.
That really is.
Yes, that is.
I didn't even realize I
that's
said
inside
it.
of him. That's out of him. I love that he said that.
I'll be there in 5 keyframes.
Keyframes. Well done, my friend. Well, what do you got? I mean, now where do we go? All right, so we're good. I think Cog, you're with us for a little longer. Chris, I just want to roll into your topic. I think this is a good one. And I think this is a great way to follow Micah's topic. So it's all yours.
Yeah, so my topic, we were choosing between two, and this is the one we decided to go with. I think I wanted to talk about jokes, and specifically, I don't mean like stand-up jokes or anything like that where it's like a long kind of story, although those can apply sometimes. I feel like growing up, I feel very privileged in the sense that I grew up around so many funny people. Like my dad is so funny and my mom is hilarious. And I never quite knew which version of them I was going to get because they would flip on a dime. Like it would be like, Chris, you're grounded. Also, but also I think they really enjoyed making me laugh. I think they instilled that in me because I was like just such an asshole when I was a kid. I would just do anything for a laugh, like probably arguably far too much. But it got me thinking about like some of the jokes that maybe we've heard throughout our lives that maybe stuck with us, or like if there's something that we adopt, or if we tell them, or if we've elaborated on them, or if we've changed them in some way. They could be short, they could be like cringy kind of, joke book type jokes that we would read at like a Scholastic book fair, or something that an aunt or an uncle would tell you at like Thanksgiving when they've had a little bit too much coquito. I don't know. I was curious to see if any of you had any of these, and I could go first, but I warned you, this is an annoying joke.
Oh, I gotta hear this.
But it is. Hear it now.
But it's. I think it's my favorite joke that I've ever heard. I don't know where this comes from, but I've loved it for such a long time. It's called the brick joke, and the setup is okay. There's 3 best friends outside in like a field. It's been raining a little bit. The field's a little bit muddy. They're trying to kill time waiting for a party at the end of the day. And they're like, how do we kill time? We're bored. And so they find a pile of bricks. And one guy says, okay, I have an idea. We're going to throw bricks into the air. And whoever gets the brick deepest in the mud wins. So you throw it up, goes down in the mud. Whoever gets it deepest in the mud wins. First guy throws it up in the air. Lands, it's about 2 inches deep. He's like, oh, that's good. The second guy goes, oh, I think I could do better. And he picks it up, he throws it in the air, comes back down, 5 inches in the mud. It's like, oh shit. And the third guy is like, oh, I'm gonna do better than that. Takes the brick, throws it up in the air, and then doesn't come down. And then the next joke is there's a woman. There's a woman booking a flight. Don't worry. There's a woman booking a flight for a funeral. And she's got to go home for her mother just passed away. She's got to go home for a funeral. But the only flight she can afford is on no smoking, no parrot airlines. And wouldn't you know it, she's got a sick parrot that she can't leave alone. So she decides, well, I've got to go home. I've got to go to this funeral. I'm going to sneak the parrot on the plane. And so she puts it under her shirt. And she gets through security, and she gets on the plane, and they're in the air. They're in the air already. And then you hear, I probably want a cracker. It's like, oh, shut up. Shh. And then the pilot comes out, smoking a cigar, smoking a big fat stogie. He's like, what's going on out here? And she goes, nothing. And then the parrot makes him, probably want a cracker. And he's like, oh, fuck. Pilot rips the shirt up. You've got a parrot on this plane. You're not allowed to have a parrot on this plane. And then the woman goes, you're smoking a cigar. You're not allowed to smoke on this plane. And they open the window. He throws the cigar out. They throw the parrot out too. And now they're both furious. They're in the middle of this flight. Lady sits back down. She's like, oh man, I can't believe my parrot's fucking dead. This sucks. Pilot goes back into the cockpit. He's like, oh man, that was like my last stogie. God damn it. And then there's a knock on the plane window. It's the parrot. And guess what it has in its mouth? Guess.
Stogies.
No, the brick.
I never heard that joke.
It is so stupid and I love it because it's so disrespectful of people's time. And every time I tell it, like half of the people laugh, and then half of the people are like,
I love it. The mixed reaction.
And I love that specifically. Like that's the one that I want. I love the exhale where it's like, God damn it. It's a very Norm Macdonald kind of like,
yes.
I'm gonna spend as much time in this long-winded premise as possible. That joke, you could stretch that joke out to like 7 minutes, which I have absolutely done. But that's the abridged version. And I love that joke because it's so unorthodox and so strange. I wish I could remember where I heard it the first time, but I've been telling it like to everybody. It's like the first joke I tell people if I meet them and I have time. But I was just curious if any of you had anything like, not necessarily that long or that crazy, but if anything, even if it's dumb, like that chicken cross the road joke, which is obviously very, very famous, that I actually didn't get until like embarrassingly late. I think I was like 23 when the other side. I'm stupid. But yeah, let me pass it on to Micah first. I'm curious.
All right. Yeah, I had to dig deep in the joke bank because I told 2 of my best jokes on the last episode of Constellation. So I was like, oh no, what do I do here? Now, I have to say, when I was a kid, I always loved telling jokes, and they were equally bad as they are now. My favorite one being, Chris, I'm going to pass this to you. Okay. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
I am. And that was the joke. That was the joke. I did that to people relentlessly when I was a kid. That was just always
stupid. I love it.
It is. But I always liked telling jokes. The adults, so they'd laugh. They liked it. The one that I thought of though, we mentioned on the last episode that blonde jokes add a style. Here's one of my favorites because it's about a blonde man. All right, this is a rarity.
Okay.
All right. You have 3 guys working construction. You have a red-haired man, a blonde man, and a brown-haired man. They're eating their lunch, and they're up on the scaffolding. And the red-haired man says, if my wife makes me a Reuben one more time, I'm jumping. And the blonde-haired man says, if my wife packs me a bologna sandwich one more time, I'll jump right with you. The brown-haired man says, if I eat another turkey sandwich, I can't do it anymore. I'm going to jump. Well, the next day they get to work. They each open up their lunch pails. They're up on the scaffolding. The red-haired man gets his Reuben. He jumps. The blonde-haired man gets his bologna sandwich. He jumps. And the brown-haired man, turkey again. He jumps. That weekend at the funeral, the wives are, beside themselves. The red-haired man's wife, if only I had listened, if only I had, put some more inspiration into my cooking, he'd still be here. The brown-haired man's wife, if only I hadn't given him turkey again. The blonde-haired man's wife was pretty calm and composed, and they looked at her and said, don't you feel guilty? Don't you feel like it's your fault? And she said, he packed his own lunch.
That's great.
I never heard that one either.
I'm going to be honest with you that the version when I was a kid was a bit more racist because like one guy was Mexican, it was tacos every day, and and it was I've cleaned it up a little bit.
That's a great punchline. I love that.
What I like about that joke is that you can fill it in with pretty much anything, because I don't have the best memory. You telling that like really long joke, and I'm like, I can't remember a sequence that tough. Long. It's, I can't remember all that. But with this joke, it's like you can do whatever hair color you want. Just one of them's got to be blonde. And you just need to remember 3 sandwiches. You can make whatever sandwich you fucking want, right? Like you just have to remember what you said 30 seconds prior.
Yeah,
but otherwise, it's like
a formula almost. Like you could
exactly, like the joke itself could be anything. it's just like, you just got to have that. And that's part of why I've been able to keep that joke in my brain for so long. Because there was this guy at church who was always telling blonde jokes. And there's one of them that I can't remember. The punchline is that the woman ended up with her foot stuck in the steering wheel. And it's because, I guess back in the day, the high beams were like a switch that you'd hit with your foot. And so she was trying to hit the switch with her foot, but like you had to go through the hole in the steering wheel to get to the lever, basically. It's one of those jokes, though, that is so old at this point.
Right.
Cars don't work like that anymore. I can't even remember the formula to that joke because I've never even seen a car like that. It was just a joke that people my parents' age got. But for me, it's like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. The high beams are right here, Grandpa. They're right here. They're not on the floor. So that is one that I like because not only can you update it to make it less racist, but you also just don't have to remember a whole lot. And it works. It works pretty well.
I generally find that if jokes don't really need to make that much sense. Like, you could probably get away with a joke like that, I think. Although, like, it does depend on the conventional wisdom, I guess, of, like, where the steering wheel and where that switch would be. Like, in that parrot joke, like, you can't open the window and throw a cigar out the window. Like, you can't. No. There would be. It's all
unless
stupid.
You're on a Boeing.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's true.
Ooh, timely, topical. Micah, look at you workshopping this joke. I like it.
You can turn it into a Boeing and really make it current. But yeah, I love that one because that is a really like picture perfect framework of a joke. Like, you could build anything off of that blonde joke. I think the sandwiches.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
and I did like that one because it was just, I think it's the only blonde joke I've ever heard about a man. Like, and I'm not someone who's like, blonde jokes are bad. I love blonde jokes. I just like the variety of it. I've never heard one about a man except for that one. It flips it. I liked that one a lot. So
it does.
Thank you. I'm glad you liked it too.
Yeah. And
so good.
Both of those jokes I never heard. I never heard either one of them because you think by this time convention, right? Everybody's heard like the corny jokes, but or the clean. I should say the clean joke. That's the cool thing about these. There are quality jokes that you could still tell to kids. That's a very specific.
Oh yeah.
Ish. I mean, ish. You could tell them to kids ish, but depends on the kids.
I know. I don't think my suicide joke would go over very well at our family gatherings. At my family gatherings, yes,
dude,
everyone would laugh.
That would kill
at
Thanksgiving for me.
Exactly. If I was telling this at like a Moriarty family gathering, no.
Oh, they would.
That wouldn't go well at all.
I'm trying to think.
It would go well with you.
Yeah. All right.
And then we'd be stuck at the kids' table for the rest of the night, in trouble. But no, that wouldn't go well.
We would be there anyway, Micah. We'd be there from the jump. Let's be honest. It's funny, Chris. I thought the first joke I thought of when you sent the email was the Norm Macdonald moth joke.
The moth joke is iconic, yeah.
Is the epitome of like wasting your time. And the whole thing is the buildup for a very conventional punchline. But I would never do. I was reading it and I was like considering, all right, let me do this. But you know what? His timing and also Conan's reaction to how long it's taking is such a huge part of that iconic moment and one of a legendary comic's most legendary moments. That joke is so I wouldn't go there. But I did think of one, actually. I was struggling, but I thought of one that I still think is funny that has withstood the test of time that I heard, I think, from the first time in college from a good friend of Helene's who's still around. Like, they just had dinner this week. And that's where I wonder if you guys heard this one. And I think there are different iterations of it, but this is the way I heard it years ago. And it's a longer, not a longer joke, but it's one that I don't have trouble remembering for some reason, which is interesting. All right, you guys tell me if you've heard this one. A duck walks into a bar, goes up to the bartender, says, "Hey, bud, do you have any duck food?" The bartender's like, "No, duck, what are you talking about? This is a bar. We have wine, we have beer, we have mixed drinks. I even got some pretzels, but I definitely don't have any duck food. I'm sorry, I can't help you." Duck leaves, sad. Next day, same duck, same bar, walks in, goes up to the bartender, says, "Hey, bud, you have any duck food?" Bartender says, "No, you were just in here yesterday. I explained the whole thing to you. I don't have any duck food. What do you want me to say?" Duck's crestfallen, but walks out of the bar silently.
Crestfallen.
Comes in the third day. Same duck goes up to the bartender. Bartender sees him coming and says, "Hey, bud, do you have any duck food?" Says, "Duck, I don't understand. This is the third day you came in asking for duck food. This is a bar. I have alcoholic beverages and some snacks, peanuts, pretzels. I don't have any duck food." Duck leaves, does again, same thing. Next day comes in, bartender sees him coming, just already irate. Duck comes in, of course, says, "Hey, bud, do you have any duck food?" Says, "I don't listen. This is 4 days in a row, the better part of a week. You came in asking for duck food. I already explained this to you a million times. If you come in this bar one more time asking me for duck food, I am going to nail your beak and your feet to this bar." Duck looks shocked, but he's all right. It's still sad. Leaves. 5th day, Friday night. Duck comes walking in the bar, strolling like he'd never been in there before. Goes up to the bartender. Bartender's like, "Are you kidding me?" Duck says, "Hey, you have any nails?"
That's
Bartender's a little shocked. Says, "No, I don't have any nails. You have any duck food?"
Yeah.
That's good. So fucking corny. I love it.
What world? Like, can you just imagine the whole this world? Why is the duck doing this? Like, if you really read into a joke, it's pretty funny.
It all falls apart. Every joke falls apart the second you try to read into it. But like, I love that. I love that you used crestfallen to describe. There's something about that deep human degree of sadness for an animal like that. It's great. Good vocabulary in a joke. Really,
why isn't he taking care of? Why is there ducks in this world that can walk into a bar, but they're not? They're turned down for service.
Good vocabulary in a dumb joke like that really elevates it, I think.
Yeah,
like right. Crestfallen is not a word that you expect to hear in a joke like that, and I love that.
And I love a comedian dissecting it like that. That's something. I don't know if I have the tools to do that, but the language is a big part of it, I guess. Right? Now that
it's very lyrical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, were you thinking the whole time about the duck walking up to the lemonade stand? Do you remember that old YouTube video?
Yep.
That was the first thing I thought of. Dagan, do you know there's a YouTube video? Oh, it's adorable. It's this little animation. This was out like when we were in high school, probably.
Yeah, it was like the duck song or something.
Oh yeah, because I still know the whole song. I'm not going to sing it, but the duck goes to a lemonade stand and he asks for grapes every day, and it's this cute little song about it that I was obsessed with because it was just so cute. But that's what I was thinking of the whole time, and I'm like, oh my god, they stole it from this joke. They stole it.
Really, I got to see this.
It's really old. It's like early Newgrounds. It's like probably like what 2003 or something.
Yeah,
like
I probably heard that's probably around the time I heard this joke, so it could have been taken from that. Yeah,
maybe.
Right? College? Yeah, maybe just after college, something like that. Yeah.
What about
dude, that's funny. I love corny jokes.
Yeah, they're great. So Cog.
Yo. Yeah, this one's funny because I didn't really we don't really do like, but also one of my friends, we don't really tell conventional jokes to each other in a weird way. We either like laugh at things or laugh at people. Like that's our thing, right?
Me too. Me too. My friends aren't like setting up and punchlining at all. We're just
let's just make fun of people. So I remember back in the day, this is during the used game era. And at the time no one was driving. So we used to do these long treks from the Bronx to like Washington Heights, and there was like a game store. You trade your games there. So we do these long walks. So it was me and King at the time. And we're coming back. Now, on the way back, we had to pass by the old Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. And the old Yankee Stadium was on the opposite side of where it is now. And then where the new one currently is, there used to be all these assortment of parks and stuff like this. And Dave, you appreciate it because we weren't really skateboarders or anything like that, but like these were like the professional dudes. And what you call the thing with the big
The half pipe?
Yeah, the half pipe, right?
That was Mullally Park, right?
Mullally, yeah. Yeah. You know it, Mullally Park.
Yeah.
So we going from 181 from Manhattan, crosses the bridge. We're going down 167 that leads now to River Avenue, where the 4 train and where you have to pass by Yankee Stadium, and then you got to pass Mullally Park, the Yankee Stadium. This is on our way back home. So we come a long day, just talking. So we tired of the walk. We going. So I don't know what intrinsically made us stop. I still can't figure out what to this day because we really weren't scared. We weren't into this stuff. So we walking by, and we're on this gate, and the half pipe's there. So you see like all the nicest dudes with the skateboards. So we just sit there. We're like, wow, this is cool. You know, look at these kids. And we never forget, there were about 2 people that went ahead of this one kid on the half pipe. They did their little trick, dip in, dip out. All right, cool. That was dope. So when we get adjacent to the half pipe, there's this one guy, you could tell by his look, by the way he carried himself, he is the man of the park. It's like, yo, he's about to go next. You're about to see some shit. So we just intrinsically stopped, right? So he gets there and he kind of does this thing like, all right, guys, I'm up. So he starts his motion. And Dagan, I'll never forget this. This man, so, half pipes like this. He starts off, and as soon as he starts, hits his foot.
No.
Face down plant.
Oh.
Start. So everybody is like, oh my God, is he okay? Like, it was really vicious. So me and King look at each other and go, we just erupt. And you just got these 2 belligerent kids on the outside laughing at this man. I'm talking about we're holding our sides. We think it's the funniest thing ever. This kid could be dead. Yeah. We're just like, hey, yo, you see how he thought he was the nicest guy? And he just felt like that. We laughed from that moment all the way back home. I'm talking about like literally to the point where I could not breathe anymore. And I don't know why I found this so hysterically funny. I don't know why this thing resonated. So to this day, me and King still talk about this story. Yo, you remember that time the kid was killed himself? And we sat there, we laughed at him for like hours upon hours, to the point where the people at the half pipe were looking at us, how dare you? Like, they were so angry with us. And their friend was literally
pool of blood, like slowly spreading out from under. It was the build-up, because he was acting like that.
Yeah. We thought something magical was going to happen. And he ended up almost dying. And I don't know why it's wrong for me, but I still laugh.
No, man, it's fun. People falling is just universally funny. Like, yes, when you fall down and people don't laugh, it means you're very old. That's what that means.
Oh, no, not even. Have you ever gone YouTube, old people falling down? Hysterical. No. It's this great compilation. Yeah, but that's mostly but here's the thing. It's mostly from America's Funniest Home Videos. So I'm not a bad person. They showed this. All right. I'm not laughing at I'm not laughing at old people actually getting hurt. It's mostly clips from there. But there's this one old guy, and he goes to open the fridge, and for some fucking reason, the door just comes right off, and he's like, oh, and he just falls down. But Tom Bergeron showed me those. Okay, I'm not a bad person.
It is. There's sometimes things happen that in the world that you just can't explain. There's no way to explain how funny that you can never recapture or reconvey. Like, I remember a long time ago, like after prom or something, me and my friends were out like at the Palisades, and we went to see Super 8. Super 8 was in theaters. I remember that. I went to see Super 8, and we were like coming out. We were just laughing about something, and then my friend Jalen. He's tall. I don't think he had dreads at the time. He's like a very loud, rambunctious kind of person. And we were laughing, and his arms lose control when he laughs, man. Like, he just he becomes a wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube, man. The second he starts to losing it, and he goes, ah, he throws his hand down, and then he picks it. He looks at his hand. He's like, why is my hand wet? And we turn around, and there's this mother dragging her son, who's maybe 3, 4, maybe something like that. His head cocked all the way back because Jalen slapped him in the face, and he's crying. The mother didn't notice, and so the kid's like, ah, and then she yanks him. She goes, come on. And I think we we rolled around on the floor of this mall laughing because it was just impossible to stand. It was like, yo, you just gave a kid brain damage, and now his mom thinks it's his fault. Like that mother would never pick you out of a crowd, didn't notice you. But he will remember that hand for the rest of his life.
That is, what was it wet from? The kid's mouth?
He was like, I don't know, he was crying already, I think.
Right.
So
okay.
He was like probably crying already for something. He probably couldn't get a toy or like some reason. And so I guess she just assumed that he was still crying from whining. Or at least this is like the story that we've pieced together in our own heads. We've improvised so many different versions of this story, but like, or backstories for these characters, or like where they're at now. But that might be one of the funniest things that I've experienced, like in person, that still sticks with me. Yes. That I can remember.
Dude,
it's just too funny. Add on to what you say, I think for us is that like, it's always, I'm trying to make like, why did it resonate so much? One, we're on this gate laughing, holding ourselves rolling on the ground and laughing at each other at how much funny it was.
Right.
But also when you're not technically supposed to laugh.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Those social scenarios where it's like quiet, it's deafening silence, everyone's checking on the health of this person, and you got these two idiots just completely laughing. Like I think that's what it makes it more funny, is when you know you're not supposed to laugh, and it makes
100%. It's restricted. Like it's like laughing in school. It's like being with your boy in the classroom, and you bust out laughing, during a moment where the teacher is reprimanding somebody, right? And also, Cog, like it's unexpected. Like you saw this hot shot on the platform of this half pipe, getting ready to throw down a McTwist or something, and the exact opposite thing happened. This guy just flailed to the bottom of the ring like a rag doll.
Yeah, bro. I still
Not
to this
what
day,
you
man.
expected.
The least funny thing ever is like 50 times funnier in a classroom when you're not allowed to.
Yes,
absolutely. There's a great SpongeBob clip where SpongeBob and Patrick are in school, and they go like, "Do you know what I'm talking about?"
Yeah, of course.
He goes like, I can't remember. One of them goes 24, and then they start giggling, and they're like, "What's even funnier than 24? What? 25?" and it's so stupid, but it's so real. Because like it's when you have to restrain your laughter, it makes it funnier that it's difficult to do and that you're struggling to do it. And then like, especially when you're in a room with people who are breaking, or you just start seeing the cracks, that's funny. It's like it's a vicious cycle that feeds itself, man. I love that. It's one of the only things I miss about having like a standard job, or like one of the things I miss about like school.
Yes.
is just the mundane things were way funnier. Because you just weren't allowed to find them funny.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Like, or Colin mentioned it on Sacred the other day that he, had high cholesterol. And so we've been talking about this like in a serious fashion of like, okay, yeah, we're going to make some dietary changes, whatnot. But like, we can't keep anything serious for long. So like he was like, okay, I'm going over sort of like some of the dietary changes we should make. And then I was pretending to be the doctor, and I was like, all right, Mr. Moriarty, what kind of things you've been eating? And, I like to have like a mayonnaise and potato chip sandwich every now and then. Doctor, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do. I feel like I'm doing everything right, and like, because Colin is like coming at me with like, I don't know how many, like what else I should be doing. And it's like, well, maybe not, the potato chip mayonnaise sandwich, maybe not, that. And it just is like, we have this thing that's relatively serious, that we want to actually take care of, but also there's just no way that it's not like funny, that we're so inept at being adults and taking care of ourselves, and that it's true. It's like when you put it like this, like, yeah, if I told the doctor what the fuck I've been eating, they would be like, well, of course you're like this. It's really no question at all. But,
it's a miracle.
But to us, we're like,
sooner.
It's like, we're kind of like, man, like, well, what have we been doing? And then when you actually look at it, we're like, we're just morons. That's it. That's all it is. The food pyramid told me I needed 8 servings of grain per day. All right. And then it turned out to be a lie. So it's
lie. Really,
that was so insane. That was so ridiculous. The idea of a food pyramid in the first place was absurd. Like they very clearly tried to evoke like ancient wisdom with that shape. They're like, oh man, you can't deny the efficacy of this. It's a pyramid. It's a holy shape with mysterious origins.
Yes,
who are you to question it?
1000% accurate.
So stupid.
It really was. It really was. So far. So you guys
food
still
pyramid,
got it
that's
in
the
the
best
90s.
joke.
Wow.
Yeah, we still had it. I remember it being I think probably by like early 2000s, probably like by 2002. I don't remember seeing it.
Okay.
But also, like I don't imagine that I was. I don't know how old was 2002. I was 9, 8. I don't know. I don't remember.
It made it into the 21st century, though. That's incredible.
Yeah,
That's
barely, but yeah,
barely.
What a fucking joke! 18 servings of bread a day. It's good for you.
Yeah.
And now
That's
there's sugar in the
Gen
bread.
X is diabetic.
Yeah.
That's true. As long
There's
as we
sugar
weren't
everywhere.
eating sugar, we knew sugar was bad, but we didn't know bread was sugar. Like we really didn't know.
I didn't know that either. I remember I learned that kind of when Subway had that thing. Do you remember that thing that happened with Subway? Where like I think it was like
yoga
in
mats?
No, well, I don't know about the yoga mats. You're probably gonna have to fill me in on that one. But I know that apparently in some countries, I think it was like the Netherlands or like like one of those Scandinavian countries, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, which it rarely does. It was like they deemed Subway's bread not bread. Like it's more candy than bread.
Yeah.
Which is like, excuse me? What? That's deeply upsetting.
It really is.
Yeah, no, legally not bread. The yoga mat thing was when they discovered that one ingredient in Subway bread was a manufacturing component of yoga mats.
Yes.
Wild.
And they claim it's safe to eat, but I can't remember if they got rid of it or if it was like the tuna were like, no, it's fine.
I think they've never changed
like
it.
It's food. I have no idea. I still like Subway, so I just try not to think about it. And I like yoga mats, so I don't really have a problem with either one.
You like magazines.
And magazines.
Yoga mats, magazines, and Subway, all part of our new food pyramid.
There we go.
This is the pyramid, all right? And you got to have the magazines at the bottom. You should get like 8 to 10 pages per day.
So base. I love it.
All right, well.
Oh my
Yeah, thank you guys for sharing all that. It's what an unorthodox and ridiculous train that was to ride.
Yes.
But it was fun. I'm also glad I got to tell that stupid joke. I've had that joke. That I've told that joke to so many people. It's obnoxious to the point where it's like, oh no, he's gonna tell the joke again. People leave the room.
That guy.
Which just makes me want to do it more. I love. There is something to the audacity.
Yeah.
Of that joke to like start with a fake one that like then transitions into something else that has the nerve to demand you remember that first one that didn't work. I love it.
There is a fine line, right, between making somebody laugh and torturing somebody. You know what I mean? That's like the old greats like Henny Youngman and stuff. It was like he's going to do a bunch of wife jokes. They were going to be kind of cringy. You knew it was coming. They were kind of funny. Maybe like, one or two click. But
it's like Rodney Dangerfield would always be like, "My wife, I'm going to kill her," and it's like, oh, okay. All right, man. Curious.
Dangerfield. Wow.
Oh, good shit, my friends.
Oh man.
Well, Cog, what do you think? Are you kind of exit stage left here, or what? Or do you have a little more time?
Yeah,
you're out.
Cut it. Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, you know what? I have to say, my topic, which I almost pulled. Okay. I'm kind of happy Cog doesn't have to be here for this one.
Oh no.
I just feel like I almost pulled it because I was like, I don't know, doing this to Cog, this seems like the bridge too far. So I'm happy you dodged it. Actually,
it's all good. It's all good. I would have contributed.
All right, part two.
Part two.
We'll have you back.
Yeah. No doubt. Much love on this. This is a great time and funny topics for sure.
I'm looking through all of my notes because I have a folder in my notes that says notes while high, and it's just all of these dumb. And this one just says Laird David Bowie. And it says, I'm floating in a peculiar way. and that's it. The dumbest.
I told Colin I keep meme ideas in my notepad, and half of it I'm just too lazy to make them.
Right,
I have one of them that just says Lord of the Rings Antiques Roadshow.
Oh,
I don't know what the hell that meant. The thing is, I can't remember what that meant at the time. But this is a good one that I need to actually make. Okay, do you know the clip of Randy Savage who's like the cream and he keeps having those little cups of cream? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're saying.
I thought of, instead of the cream, what if he was holding an urn and he was like the cremains, and he's holding this urn of like some dead person, the cremains. And I didn't make the meme though. I just wrote it down.
So gross.
Yeah, we should have like an entire episode based on these ridiculous notes.
Yeah. Oh my God. I cleared mine out the other day. I had over 200 notes. I mean, I still have too many, but I couldn't believe how many had accumulated.
I keep them because they're stupid and I don't remember. Like, I don't know what business idea build a real bear means, but I have it. And it's sitting there waiting to be used. But I am satisfied by the joke topic.
Very well done. I loved it.
So I
absolutely loved it. Now,
it's
we're rolling to the final topic here. It's really kind of trepidatious with this one, but I said, you know what? I'll tell you what triggered this whole thing. I've been listening, first of all, to a lot of Tim Dillon, which I mentioned on the podcast over the last few weeks. Very controversial, sort of ironic on purpose, hilarious rants. From Long Island. I mean, what's there not to love? But I was thinking, now I can't, that coupled with the whole sort of, I guess, model of stuff that's not safe for work, right? NSFW. And the thing of, I can't personally listen with my headphones to things at work because I have to be plugged in to the audio that I'm animating to. So it just doesn't, especially for this new job. But I do listen to a lot of stuff on the train with, my headphones or my AirPods. And I feel like if somebody ripped my headphones out of the bottom of my cell phone and they heard what I was playing on the train, it would be, especially if it was Tim Dillon, like in the sort of right in the meat of his rant where he's being controversial and he's saying the most fucking heinous shit. And usually ironically, but nobody knows the context, right? It would be so embarrassing. And then I thought also, how do we troll our audience to talk about things? We get rated R on the show, but how do we bring it to like an NC-17 level and make it just not safe for work for these people to listen to, at least this segment of the podcast when they're at work? Be kind of funny. And again, I almost pulled back. I almost completely changed the topic. I was like, do I have the heart to do this? The other thing is my best friend PJ has been on the last couple of episodes of Knockback, and he's been wanting to tell what I think are very incriminating stories of things we did growing up. And we didn't really get into those things on purpose. And I was kind of muzzling him on purpose because I don't know. Some of the things, we grew up a long time ago. Some of the things didn't age well, but then I thought maybe it'd be fun to tell a couple of these stories. So I thought of one, and I'll kick it off. And whatever you guys want to do with this not safe for work thing, if you have a story that crosses, maybe crosses boundaries into like, we don't really get to, Colin doesn't insist that we kind of stop ourselves from saying what we want to say, but we don't really get that controversial too often. But I have a story that I don't think I've ever told anybody that is absolutely hilarious. And the fact is that the more I think of this whole thing, this whole night is kind of like a fever dream. Not that it was just a long time ago because I was in college, but also, I don't know how much alcohol was involved. It was a crazy time period and just a lot of time passed. And I missed a lot of it. It happened in my apartment. This whole incident that I'm going to explain happened in my apartment, but I was kind of distracted. I was kind of like involved in a cursory way, but I wasn't involved in exactly what happened. So a lot of it was just an observation, and some of it's maybe feeling like I saw things that I didn't see and I just heard about later. But anyway, so I was in college at the time. I had an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment with my friend Alex. It was my first off-campus apartment when I was in college. So it was my first apartment that wasn't college affiliated. So it was like this new sense of freedom. and we had a blast. And I guess an important part of this for context is at that time, this was probably 95 or 96. Philadelphia was like the mecca for skateboarding. Like people were coming from all over the country and all over the world to spend time skateboarding in Philadelphia. Whether that was casual skateboarders or pros, or the different magazines would come through, different companies coming on tour. Like Philly was like Barcelona became to skateboarding later on. Like Philadelphia was the destination for skateboarding. And a lot of we were casual skateboarders and involved in skateboarding, but myself and a lot of friends were involved in skateboarding in a bigger way too. It was how we were making a living. I managed a skate shop at the time, which was like Philly's Supreme at the time, Sub-Zero. I managed Sub-Zero's skateboard team, Declaration. My friend started a skateboard magazine. Another friend of mine started a shop in South Philly. A lot of people rode for different teams. A lot of people team managed. So a lot of my sphere were involved in skateboarding beyond just skateboarding. And it was so when people came into town, whether it was pros or companies coming through or just people coming from different countries to just witness Philadelphia and spend a week or two, we played host to a lot of these people. So there were a group of guys that came through often. I'm not even sure exactly how we met these guys, but they were a troop of dudes that ran a small skateboard company in Oklahoma. I don't even remember any of their names, but we called them the Oklahomies. That was just their name. We called them the Oklahomies. There was like 5 or 6 of them, and they would come up and stay with us at one of our various apartments. And we were also good friends with a skateboarder that we grew up at the time that just moved to Boston to go to Boston University. And it was my friend Jeff, who I'm still dear friends with. And he's a funny dude because he's one of the smartest guys I know. Like he's a genius. He's like a chief engineer for Cisco Systems now. He went to Carnegie Mellon for grad school, but he's also the biggest wild man in my life. Like I think a lot of it is that he's really smart and hardworking, but when he blows off steam, it's like this dude can party. So he was the one that introduced us to a lot of these guys. So I remember this incident. The Oklahomies were staying with us at me and my friend Alex's apartment. And I had a group of friends, girlfriends that were just, friends. My friend Jamie, and she would come around with 2 of her friends from the suburbs, and we hung out a lot. Jamie was my roommate at one point, but I had moved out of the house with her at this point. But she was a good friend, so she would bring her 2 friends around. Then the Oklahomies were over, and just a contingent of skateboarders from around the area. We were just hanging out at my apartment drinking. Things got really crazy because we often played Truth or Dare as like a group of people, and things would get nuts. Like things would get so out of hand. And my friends from Long Island, PJ was part of that. He would come through. But I remember at this time I was dating this girl named Melanie. So I would be, at these parties, me and Melanie were hanging out and often off to the side and not really paying attention to what was going on in a larger sense with people that were unattached. So I remember I was dating this girl at the time, but things were getting crazy. People were drinking. It was getting nuts. People were playing Truth or Dare. And I just remember this one incident of being like, I was like 20. I was so young. And it was already getting to the point where I was like, it was getting to this point on a weekend by weekend basis where we got to dial this back. Like it's getting too crazy. First of all, we're going to get kicked out of this apartment. Second of all, we're just, every Saturday night led to a Sunday morning where we were just out of operation, like just completely hungover. Like the partying was it was mostly drinking, but and a lot of people smoking a lot of weed, although I didn't really do that at the time, but it was just getting crazy already at that age. Like the partying, the level of partying every night, like it was nuts. So things were kind of raised to a fever pitch this night. And I remember things were getting crazy and loud and everybody was drinking to excess. And I just remember, I don't even know what led up to this, but I was hanging out with Melanie on the couch. We were playing a video game or watching a movie or something. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And I got up to walk through my kitchen and looked in the one bathroom off the perimeter of my kitchen. And one of Jamie's friends was in the bathtub in her bra and underwear, peeing on the other friend who was laying in the bathtub underneath this other friend who was squatting on her. Okay.
Oh.
And they had apparently lost whatever just happened in Truth or Dare. And it was a moment of, am I living in a crack house? Like, it was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like, I've been here, I've seen a lot of shit go down, but this could only get worse if we get into like the German pooping on each other porn. Like, we're one step away from that. This has to, in my head, I didn't say anything. I kind of just walked away like in shock because I didn't know what led up to the moment, but I remember it being like a case in point of, all right, I think the partying is getting a little out of hand. Like, how do we even have this discussion in the morning when we all sober up? Like, these two girls are going to be mortified. You know what I mean? The Oklahomies are like cheering and, cheering it on and sort of,
oh man,
it was like, it was one of the craziest. The buildup, if you looked at the buildup, it was kind of obvious it was going to get to this point because it was like no holds barred. There were no rules. It was just like, and I don't know. It's funny because I was never into drugs, but I wonder now in retrospect how much of it was drug fueled, whether it was people taking acid, acid and mushrooms were big at the time. This was way before like fentanyl or even like oxy or anything like that. So I do wonder about, like, it had to be more than just alcohol. Some of the shenanigans.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like mushrooms wouldn't. Although I guess there's different strains, but in my experience, it would be hard for me to believe mushrooms would put you in that kind of a state.
That might be a bit.
Yeah, this
acid
feels
maybe.
More
I have no
like,
idea.
Yeah, this feels more like, oh, Truth or Dare. Let me just shoehorn one of my kinks in here. That's what it.
Yeah.
That's really what it sounds like. Is like I'd like to see Heather pee on Ruth. I'm gonna make that happen. Like, that really more just feels like somebody just really wanted to see that.
That's why I always hated Truth or Dare, like as like a premise. I was just like, this is kind of embarrassing because everybody's just saying. Like they think it's like shrewd or something. Like, it's like, oh, no one's gonna know that I want to see this. It's like, what?
Well, you know what it was, Chris, with this tribe in particular, like this era of partying and this group of people, that was a pretty big group of people, especially when everybody was involved, even when the main players were just involved and didn't like invite their satellite people. I think the group was so big that I think a lot of people felt safe that they were going to get overlooked or were not even going to be involved at all. So it was safer than playing Truth or Dare with 4 or 5 people, because this could have been 15, 16, 17 people at a time crammed into my apartment playing this game. But the thing is, there were groups when these groups were all together, there were definitely players that didn't even know each other. So that also might have been encouraging of like, all right, I don't know this guy anyway. I don't see him in the morning type of thing. I'm never going to see him again. These are people from either we had a group of people from Australia staying with us, or it was Oklahoma or somewhere out west. People from Spain and Europe were coming through, other parts of Europe. So yeah, but that whole time, I kind of wish we had like some video evidence of the things that went down. Because again, it's kind of shadowy in my memory because it's 25 years ago, 20 something years ago. But that whole time was just a thing of like, I'm actually glad it happened when I was so young, because you hear about skateboarding and partying and everybody saw it in black and white with things like Jackass, right? The things that those guys got up to, it kind of became a public thing, but that's a very big thing in skateboarding. You're young, you're making money, you're in this industry that encouraged partying, and it was pretty destructive, but it was pretty interesting to see that kind of stuff play out in real time, in Philly, in its heyday. And my God, Jesus, I have some stories. You know what? I tell you what it does now to me as a 50-year-old with teenage kids. It's like, oh my God, please. I just hope they never have to be around any of that kind of stuff. But, because I know what I saw.
Right.
I know what I was around. And the thing is, too, Colin was around for some, not that kind of shit, because he was only 16, 17 at the time, but he was definitely around my friends or a group of my, contemporaries in Philly at the time where they were getting into some crazy shit.
Right.
I think that next morning is when we got served with an eviction notice, because it just got too, they didn't even know
That's
the
crazy.
particulars. but they knew how loud it was, how late into the night. And the asinine thing about all of this kind of stuff, all the hijinks that went down in this apartment, was that it was this realty company's premier building downtown, and their office was on the ground floor. So they were in the building. The guy that owned the place was in the building, you know, so like he would hear everything. And if he didn't hear it directly, he would just hear it from another tenant. So it was just, it was shades of foolish, but my God, unbelievable. I'll never be so shocked as seeing two girls peeing on each other in my shower for, I don't even know. Again, I don't even know what led up to it, you know, which makes it kind of more interesting because I don't know what led up to that moment or what went on before or after, you know, because I think it scared my girlfriend wasn't even in school at the time. She was just a girl from the suburbs that I met. Party. So she was just like, what is this? You know,
that's so fucking great.
It was like her Panic in Needle Park moment. Like I introduced her to this whole world of like debauchery. Yeah. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
That's like you go from Blue's Clues to episode 5 of Salad Fingers. You know what I mean? You're not even. Not only is it jarring, but you're not even caught up. Like you don't even know what you don't even have a baseline.
There's nothing in the middle.
Yeah, just smack dab in the middle. Just like, oh, okay. I guess my bathroom is fucked now.
It was regrettable.
It was
well, Chris. Let's stay with you. I mean, what is if you had to have an NSFW story, if you could think, or maybe something you just heard, a legend, or like I said in my email, you have that guy at work who like watches or says the wrong shit.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything quite like that. I have a lot of smaller things. Like I don't know if I've told this story actually on this show. I think I've told it before. It's so weird talking for a living because I don't remember what I've said to the audience or to the people in my real life, and like if they overlap at all.
Yeah, you lose it.
But I do remember. I don't know if this is as NSFW, but it is. You know, it is something along those lines. Where I remember a long time ago, I was probably like 17. Yeah, I think I was 17, and I was dating this girl at the time. She was 18. We were both in college. But we went to college not in our hometown, but close enough that we didn't really do dorms, right? So we were still living with our folks, and, you know, we're college adults. We're dating. We have no privacy. And so that leads you to places that are a little unorthodox. And I remember I had this, like, it was, thank God I am short, and also the people that I date are relatively my size, because that Toyota Corolla was more than enough. But I remember specifically, it was just like, all right, well, you know, it's about something's happening. We can't be here. I can't go to your place. What are we gonna do? It's like, all right, I'll pick you up. And we lived in like the sticks, kind of like it was like this weird mix of suburbs and rural. We had neighbors who had houses kind of close to us, but there were no sidewalks. It's like that kind of thing where it's like, this is kind of in a weird, like liminal middle space between these two things. I'm not quite sure how to navigate this, but there was this mall, and next door to the mall was this big building that was basically abandoned. I think it used to be, I think they run big flea markets out of there, like maybe like twice a year. Or something, but it was this big place. It was an empty parking lot. So you're like, all right, whatever. It's dark. It's like 9 p.m. Let's go take care of business here in this empty parking lot in my 2004 silver Toyota Corolla.
Yes.
And, you know, it progresses and it ends. And it's about, we're in there for about like 30, 45 minutes, and we're just chilling. The windows are fogged. And we're just like, okay, it's like, all right. And then we're just like, okay, well, where are we going to go? We're just trying to decide, like, do we go get something to eat? And then headlights from behind me. Just bright white headlights from behind me in this abandoned parking lot at like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, no. no. Because my first thought was, first of all, it's not cop sirens. It's not like cop, like the red, blue.
Right.
It's just headlights. So I'm thinking, what psychopath civilian is approaching an empty, fogged up car at night in an empty parking lot? What is the mindset of this civilian?
Oh, no.
That is terrifying. That was like way scarier than the police to me. Because I was like, oh my God, is this like a psycho? Like, is this person going to kill me?
Yeah, Summer Sam.
And then the siren, the red, blue comes on. I'm like, no. Okay, that's better, I guess. But oh no. And so we're just getting we're getting dressed really, really quickly. I managed to get everything on. She's still getting everything on. And there's a knock at the window, and it's this like this must have been like a 65-year-old police officer. Opens, like, he's like, "Can you step out of the car?" And then I'm so nervous that I open the door and I like push it, and it hits him a little bit. It's like, "You trying to attack me, son?" And I'm like, I swear,
no.
I was so terrified. I was like, I swear to God, I'm so scared right now, is what I told him. And he just looks at both of us in the backseat of this car, just like so disappointed. And he goes back to his car. He's like, he's like, "Give me your license. What's the registration?" He asked us like, I think he said, he asked us, "What are you guys doing?" And I said, "I think it's obvious. I don't really want to say," is what I said to him. And he just like, he lets out a deep sigh. He goes back to the cop car. He's there for like, I think like he's there for 7 minutes, like an excruciatingly long time. And we're just sitting, we're sitting in the car. We're like so embarrassed. So fucking, it's so traumatizing. And he comes back up to the window. The windows are clear now. He says, "Just go home. Just please go home. And don't do this again, for God's sake," is what he said. And I was like, okay, noted. And, we went home. I dropped her off at her place. I went home. I fell asleep. I think I was just so anxious from the entire situation that I exhausted all of myself, because I was like, oh my God, I do not want my parents hearing about this.
Yeah.
This is so, not that I think that they would be too crazy about it. Like, I was never like scared of my parents finding out about that stuff. I would just rather have avoided the conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even think my parents really had the talk with me, because I think they just kind of, they understood that I was like smart and paying attention. So like, I remember my dad came in to my room like a long time ago. I don't remember how old I was. I must have been like maybe 10 or 11 or something, or maybe 12. I don't know. 12 latest. And he goes, "Hey, so, you're probably changing, right?" And I stopped him immediately. I was like, "Dad, don't worry, please. I know we have a health program in the school."
No.
I said, "Please, it's okay." And he said, I don't remember if, I feel like, I don't know if he said this to me or if I just got the overwhelming energy of this, but it almost felt like he said, "Oh, okay, thank God." And then he walked away. I don't know if it was verbal, but that was definitely the energy. He like clapped. He was like, and then he walked away.
He's absolved.
Yeah, so like I wasn't super worried. I wasn't worried that they would hit me or like yell at me or anything, but just better to avoid that. And I was thankful that he seemed, okay about it. I think he looked up my record too and saw that I wasn't like a fucking troublemaker or whatever. And he was like, "All right, listen, just go home." But that's probably the most personal one that I can think of. That is also the most amusing, because dude, like getting stopped by a cop in the middle of that is crazy. Because your brain is not in that space, man.
No.
Like you were just in a very different mode. Like imagine like like, okay, imagine 9:56, I'm feral and not thinking of anything. 9:58, I'm talking to a police officer.
No,
like, it was
should have to do
very
that.
quick. No, it was not good.
Oh,
not good.
God. Let me ask you this. Did you and the girl ever do that again?
I didn't do that with her, no.
See, that was when this Corolla's a rockin', don't come a knockin'. You know what, though? I mean, you were, first of all, told very classy, Chris. I think you kept that safe for work. Very elegant.
Yeah.
But also, I like, you didn't really do anything wrong. Like, you did something. How old were you at the time?
I was 17.
All right. So it's to be expected-ish at that time.
Ish.
You know, at
yeah.
that age. You weren't operating. Now, let me ask you this question. If you guys were cops, would you get like apprehended teenagers kind of knowing what's going on here?
No shot. I can't imagine that I would ever like proudly drag two horny teenagers into a police station. Like I can't imagine that would be so
cool.
First of all, I feel like that's even embarrassing from just the cops' perspective too. Just to even ring that up as like something worth paying attention to. It's like, this is what you're doing. They're selling there's you know you're the other guy in your unit just stopped like a fentanyl sale like 2 blocks away from where you were. So like I'm glad you were keeping an eye out for this. I get why he checked it out. It's a suspicious car. It was kind of stupid of me to park in the center of an abandoned parking lot at night. In retrospect, I probably would have been a little bit more shrewd and maybe like, I don't know, towards the back of a populated parking lot, maybe. But then that's kind of like its own kind of, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. You don't know what you're thinking in that state of mind. You don't think.
No.
You know? So it was, dude, it was so embarrassing though. Like, cause he looked so disappointed. Like that was what really got me. It was like, he looked so dejected that it's just like, oh man, is it coming to this? Cause he probably assumed that the assumption I assume was that like, we didn't have to be here. Like you could have just been at your place. Why are you doing this? You know, in public like animals. But yeah, no, I wouldn't stop. I wouldn't bother with that.
No, absolutely not. It's an easy collar though, right? Like veteran, you said older police officers have been on the job for 30 years. He's seen everything. That look at disappointment, like that just that washed over him. This is a guy who's seen everything.
Yeah. I was thankful that he didn't call my because he could have. He knows he knew where like I lived and obviously he could have told my parents, but I think he understood.
He just released you back into the wild.
Yeah,
that's funny.
It was also like, honestly, it was really nerve wracking. Not even just because that's a really compromising position to be in while talking to a police officer, but generally, you know, the girl that I was seeing at the time we were in the sticks. We were in like upstate New York. It's very, I don't know. It's weird. You see, when I was home, one of the last times you saw, like, I remember there was a dairy barn where they make milkshakes and ice cream, and there was just a bunch of Trump people there with it was like a little parade for Trump at the dairy barn or whatever. And I was just like, all right, this is a weird place. But the girl I was dating at the time was a black girl. And I remember like we would go out in public and I never noticed this before, but like when we were out in public, we would see people look at us weird. Like it was a deeply jarring thing to see. But I remember specifically being like, oh, I don't. And so the thought of like being in that situation is like, oh my God, it's a cop. Oh fuck. I was so scared. I was terrified. And then I hit the guy by accident because I was so fucking nervous. But yeah, I didn't do that again for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, that scared you off it for a bit. Anyway, I mean, also like the assault thing, I kind of felt like he was joking, but it's clear that he wasn't joking.
No, he was not kidding. He was because
it's ridiculous.
I jolted. I was like so nervous. The door was stuck a little bit. So like I had to push it open, and then he was close to the car, so it hit him in like the rib or something a little bit. And he did not have a face that looked like there was ever any humor displayed on it. Like there was no like a stone, like a complete, like a fucking like Squidward's house. Just absolutely unmoving, unwavering, stone-faced, no hint of joy.
That's well said.
And so, yeah, that's probably the only thing that I can think of, though, that I can speak to personally. I've heard things, but like, you know, and I think I told the story about like being in that bathroom at like Taylor Swift's house at that party that some people threw in her house. And there were like people doing coke in the bathroom when I just wanted to pee. and they somebody knocked it up in the air and there was like a little bit of smoke, and then like I thought I breathed some of it in, and I was like paranoid the rest of the night because I was like, am I on coke? I don't want to do cocaine. I don't want to do this. But that's the only other one. But I think I've told that story before on one of these shows.
That rings a bell, but that's so phenomenal. That's so
ridiculous.
I mean, you have to, I don't know. There's something, I say this cautiously because I have teenagers now, but I just feel like you have to have these experiences. I mean, what's funny is when I was 20, we used to lash out against the fraternity dorks. Like, look, we were a fraternity. Like, it was the exact same shit. We were doing the exact same shit.
Right.
I imagine how crazy it must get in a fraternity. It's the exact same dynamic, and then we would talk about this, that, and the other thing. It was, I mean, Micah, listen, you're no stranger to sordid tales.
Sordid. Love that
What
word.
do you got for us, my friend?
Well, the first thing I gotta say, I see Chris a little differently now. I didn't know he liked pumpernickel. This changes my perception of Chris. I'm a little disappointed it wasn't a gold Corolla. That would have been real cool. But this changes things a little bit. I see you. I see what you're doing, Chris. A little rye chip in the Chex Mix. I see you. I see what you're doing.
Oh my God.
Stories. Okay. I got some stories. But it's literally, I legally can't tell like the best story, right? It's just one of those things like I don't want to get in trouble for this.
Yeah, that's hard.
So I have some stories from work, actual work, that were very, what the hell's going on here? Worked in an IT office, all right? A lot of male employees. I was like one of the very few women. Number one thing was the wife photo swap, like group text. That a lot, and it was one of those like this was a known thing that their wives didn't know, but there were dudes at the office swapping photos of their wives, and all you had to do to get in was just share your own photo of your wife, and it was just one of those. The thing is that it was an open secret.
So like nudes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they were.
We're talking.
Oh my God. What?
We weren't just sharing like, here's my wife Heather at
backyard barbecue.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's my wife Heather at the
cookout.
bris.
But no, so it was this, and it was like an open secret, partly because they wanted more people to get in on it. But it was one of those things. That was one of the things where I realized, this stuff really happens, because it felt in a way kind of sitcom-y, it felt kind of like, okay, yeah. And it's like, this is real. These dudes actually do have this group chat, and you got a picture of your wife. We don't care what she looks like. We just want to see it. And then you'll get all, it was kind of like a pyramid scheme as well. Like one of those multi-level marketing things. It's like, you send us one photo, you get 10 photos back,
That's crazy.
But that was, it was. And it was also to look at these people and work with them and just be like, oh God, like you're just all swapping wife photos. It was one of those early like entrances to the real world is kind of gross. There is like, I previously had worked retail with a lot of women. And so they'd tell stories about like going on dates with guys, and like those could get pretty spicy. But this was another level of like, oh shit, like the buttoned up man that you see in that office is like farming out pictures of his wife to get other pictures of that guy's wife.
Shit.
It was just a bizarre thing to realize, this is real. This actually happens. Another one.
Wait, hold on, Micah, before you go further.
That's
these
wild.
guys knew you knew? Like
pretty much everybody knew.
Everybody
it
knew
really
this.
was like an open secret. These guys were management, which was part of it. So they weren't going to get in trouble.
Right.
Like unless the CEO found out, they weren't going to get in trouble. They were managers. So it was just one of those, an open secret of, not that I was invited to it because I didn't have a wife, but you just heard about it. You'd hear people talking about it. And the other thing too, just being very good friends with the other guys I worked with, and like them telling me like, he asked if I'd send a picture of my girlfriend to the group chat, like, just things like that of like, oh, okay, like it's just, I was on the outside of it because I was a woman who wasn't like a lesbian, but it was very obvious. Like there were too many people corroborating the story of like, yeah, they were approached about it, like about my wife, things like that. Wow. It was like, and they were management, so they just they weren't going to get in trouble for it. They knew, so they weren't really hiding it very well at all. Wow. It was also like one guy was on his like third wife, for example, and it's just like I could see why, like, oh shucks, I can't fathom why this guy's been divorced twice already, and on the third one I go, geez, I wonder why. I wonder what he's doing. But yeah, so the wife photo swap thing was one of them. The next one, this one's maybe worse. There was a guy in a neighboring department who had gotten caught twice watching porn on his computer. No headphones. He was alone in the office, thought like everyone, thought people were gone for the day. Somebody walked in. It happened twice. What makes it worst was that it was incest porn.
No.
What makes it worse was that he had kids.
Oh, no.
But he didn't get fired for that. He got caught twice doing that. Didn't get fired. He got reassigned to a different department. And he later got fired for theft. It was one of those like, are you kidding me? That the first two things were like, oh, whatever. It's, whatever. These things happen. And then you steal something, like, how dare you steal from us? Like, how dare you steal from me? You're out of here, mister. Like, that was the one that actually got rid of him. That was one of those, like, just very shocking things to learn about. Like, oh my God, like that happened and he still works here? Oh, okay. And then it was when he finally got fired. It's like, oh my God, what did you get fired for? Was it the porn thing? And it's like, no, he stole something out of one of the closets. It's like, what?
That's
what
crazy.
underworld corporation is this? Like, this is insane.
It was just one of those things, like working in like a male-dominated field. And I don't mean that as like a stereotype, like all men are like this, but it was just like a lot of things got by because when the managers are in on that type deal, when the managers themselves are kind of skeevy dudes, it's just kind of like, yeah, all right, a female coworker caught you watching porn, slap on the wrist. It was just one of those things like in any other place, pretty much you would have been like out of here.
Oh, for sure.
It's
tolerated, maybe even encouraged. Okay.
That's the thing. Were they asking him for the link later? Were they like, what's the source, brother? Like, I don't know.
Sauce?
I don't know. Exactly. Yeah, it goes the sauce. Because I mean, you also had wacky things happening. Like I said, the guy eating soup in the bathroom, you had wacky stuff that happening. The same guy one time stole donuts that he found in a conference room, like, and just brought them to the office. Like, he walked by an empty conference room with all these donuts in it. And he was like, oh, all right. And he takes the donuts, brings them to the office. And everyone's like, oh, man, thanks. So he's like, I brought donuts for everybody. And everyone's like, oh, thanks. And then after he passed them out, he was like, I just found these in a conference room. Nobody was in there. And it's like, you can't. So, some stuff was just wacky and zany, and that felt fun.
Why would you ever leave this place? There was like never a dull moment at this place.
There wasn't a dull moment. No, the last story I want to tell is the guy who crashed the golf cart. They used golf carts like to get around, because some of the buildings were very far from each other. So the guy who crashed the golf cart, he told the manager they crashed it because he swerved because of a squirrel. But it wasn't a squirrel. What he saw, what he was distracted by, was a woman's camel toe as she was walking down the street. And and what he said afterwards, he tells the manager I was a squirrel and I swerved, I didn't want to hit it. And what he says after the fact, when he's telling like the gang what happened, he's like, those lips were whispering to me, bro. And he's like, I lost control of the cart. And like that was the real
so on brand.
I can't see a camel toe without hearing the lips were whispering to me, bro, in my head. Like it has ruined camel toe for me, of course, anyways. But just it really was just these things that you would never suspect happen, like in real life. And my God, they're happening. They're happening. right
Yeah.
under your nose
I-
at weird offices, and God help us all what goes on here, because it's, yeah, I don't know. It was just, there were too many. There were too many things like this that happened.
What's
There
strange-
are more things than this that happened. And I was only there for 4 years. It's fucking
4
crazy.
years? This is a
a
lifetime
long time.
of
That's the thing.
debauchery.
You think I'd be like, I'm 60 years old and I'm telling stories about my 40 years in service, and it's like all this happened within a span of several months. There's so many more things
I wonder how much
that happened.
Now, first of all, working for a podcast, you're never going to get this kind of colorful stuff, right? So we're missing out. Second thing is, how many things have I missed working at these corporations where it's like, all these eyes wide shut things going on behind the scenes that I was never included in? Because if you did, this is an IT company, full on big company. Obviously they have a campus, right? Like this must go on at all kinds of places. Why would it just be just this one place?
Yeah.
Exactly. That was
Ye-
kind of what I figured out along the way of like, okay, this is how we operate at this huge place, and like the highest up people, either they don't know or they're doing equally stupid things. But like, it just really was like, okay, if that's how we operate, I wonder what's going on at this other company that I interviewed at previously, right? Like, I wonder what kind of like fucked up shit they're getting into.
It's all
I don't know.
depraved. It's all of it. It's happening everywhere. There's probably like some Kmart, upper management person who's having like, hey, come to the Kmart management sex party. It's like, okay, I guess. This is like one of those masks things where you wear like a plague doctor mask so nobody knows who you are or something.
Oh,
I don't know.
That's in the break room. That's posted in the break room by the fridge.
I can't believe I never told. Wait, did I tell? There's no way I told this story on any LSM show. But I remember going to like this big house party, like an unreasonably big house party in like the hills. I don't even remember where it was. It's not here. It was like in New York somewhere. It was in between Kingston, New York, and New Paltz, somewhere in that area. I don't exactly know where it was. I was fucking lost. But we were invited. Me and my partner at the time were invited to this party. And it's huge. It's like this big house. It's like more levels than I can even fathom. With like more than I'm sure like I didn't even see. Giant pool, giant patio, giant deck, like overlooking like this mountain is crazy. And I remember I was like, oh man, I gotta go to the bathroom. It's always going to the bathroom that fucks me up. But I was like, all right, I'm looking for the bathroom, and I open a door, and it's just clearly like, oh, this is an orgy room. Oh, this is like, because things are happening in here too.
No.
And I was like, oh, and it looked like a bathroom because it literally had like a, I don't remember what exactly it was, but it was something like some dumb tacky piece of decor that you would hang on a bathroom door specifically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it exactly, but everything about that door telegraphed to me bathroom. And I walked through, and it was like, I think like genuinely like 11 people.
Oh,
Some of them half naked, some of them fully naked, some of them clothed, some of them getting dressed. And I just and they're like, "Hey!" And I'm like, "I don't know you. I don't know any of these people." And I closed the door and I just held it in.
I like that it was an odd number of people. That figures.
Yeah, I don't know
in.
if that's accurate, but
I
like
know,
it was that general. I mean, it
Dude,
wasn't
that's
50
hilarious.
and it wasn't 3. So, but that's, yeah, I don't know. Shit's going on, man. People get bored. People must get really bored, which is crazy because like, I mean, I'm bored all the time and I just kind of like make things.
Right.
So like, I don't know. I can't fathom it.
You don't ask your friend for naked pictures of their significant others when you get bored.
That's really crazy to me. Cause like
nuts.
I don't know, man. Like that strikes me as like specifically kind of because I would hear things like that growing up, and I don't really consider myself like a goody two shoes kind of person, but like that always struck me as like, why would you do that? Like, isn't like the whole point that you have this and nobody? If everybody else has it, what's the point?
Oh,
it's kind of how I thought about it.
There's a lot of layers to it.
There's so many layers to it. Everybody has. Also, there's like a obvious breach of trust here that you're like engaging in. I wouldn't want this happening with the shit that I'm sending to this person. So like, yeah, that always genuinely bothered me on like a moral level, even though I don't consider myself like, you know, a fucking alfalfa ass fucking.
I hear you.
Church boy.
No, it's absolutely like definitely crossing a line, not only at work, but just of like, yeah, did the wives know? I don't know.
Oh,
I have no idea. I only know the husbands at work. Presumably they are completely unaware. But the other thing was, and this was just something I had to get used to working with a bunch of dudes, was the type of dudes who are just really open about sexual things. And it's like, I don't think your wife would want me to know this either. Like, I'm just gonna say it. There was a guy who had a fetish for large stomachs. And he'd always be like, nothing better than spunking on bellies. Like, that was his thing. He'd always say that. All right. And I was just one of those, but it's like, Jesus, dude, like, I don't want to know this. I don't want to know that part of how you picked your wife was because she had a big gut and you were just like, oh, I'm just going to nut all over that. Like, I didn't want to know. All right. Like, I didn't want to know that, but now I do. And what do I do with this information other than be like, hey, cool, man? Like, we don't need to know everything. Roll with it.
No. We don't need to know everything about everybody. Like, it's okay. No. Like, we're all in this social contract together. I think we all understand. Sometimes I think about the fact that like everybody I know has an orgasm face and that's funny. Yes, that is very funny. But like, you don't need to see it. I don't need an audit of these things. You know, like, my God, keep some things to yourself. It's fine. It's okay. I promise you. It doesn't need to be in your Twitter bio.
Yeah, some.
You know,
mystery.
I like spunking on. I like spunking on guts.
That is absolutely insane. That you know that.
And it was worse because it was worse because of the words he chose. Like, the fact that he said spunk was terrible. Terrible. It was just like, why do you use that of all phrases? Of all phrases to denote this, you know, why that? It was too far. And then the other guy, I mentioned the camel toe thing. He brought up camel toes a lot. And it was just like, can we stop talking about the camel toe? You know, I get it. And it's yoga pant era. All right. They're everywhere. We see them. All right. Like, you don't need to keep pointing them out.
Just appreciate silently and move on with your fucking day. And then just, I don't understand. Do you don't have a laptop? You know, like, Jesus Christ, just go home and you know, take care of yourself. Jesus Christ. The thing I don't like about it is that it comes across as people like, specifically in settings like that, when I'm at work or whatever, it's just like, is this part of it for you?
Yeah. It's
like,
too much.
Like, is you telling me this part of like your revving up ceremony for when you go home? Like, do you need to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't want to be part of that.
Oh my.
No.
I want no part of that.
No, it's because the other side is like, work, Micah. You know, me at work, still like a jolly, jovial, you know, shell of a person. But, you know, I could joke around a bit, but appropriately, right? Like, we're telling pretty appropriate, you know, stories. And then it's finding out this, like, once you work there long enough and they trust you, and that's when you start hearing things. And it's like, I kind of liked it better when we didn't know each other very well. You know, like, I kind of liked it better when, you know, one time a supervisor, all right, this is one of my supervisors, was like, do you guys know about that thing where I can't, you know, I can't say it. I can't say it on here.
No, come on. Why?
Come on. We already got this far.
Okay. This is something I heard about in high school. All right. As an urban legend of, you go to a graveyard, you dig up a fresh body.
Oh, man.
One guy puts his mouth on the woman's downstairs, and then the other guy jumps on her abdomen. Have you heard of that before?
What?
What kind of crazy?
Here's the thing. A supervisor brought that up one day at work and was like, do you guys know the word for that? And in my head, I'm like, I do, but I'm not going to say it.
Oh, right.
I'm not going to let on that I know what the fuck you're talking about right now. And I just remember thinking, it was just another moment like, oh my God, this is what people talk about at work.
This world is so much darker than I knew. How dark is this world? How deep does this go?
Please don't work in an IT department,
Micah,
like ever.
this is incredible. I have to tell you, first of all, as you're telling me these stories, right? You're a young girl with all these degenerates. If anybody said a fraction of this shit around my daughter, I would commit to spending the rest of my life in prison. I'm telling you that right now. I would murder the person. Like, I'm telling you that on a podcast right now. If that happens, it was me. And you could lock me up because there's no fucking way. That I can't even believe I'm the first one to have a sense of humor, but that is actually criminal to do that to someone.
It was weird.
It's nuts.
It was very weird. And I have to say that part of like my being kind of cool with it was I was like, well, these are some pretty cool dudes otherwise, you know, like these guys are all right. You know, we have fun. But the other side of it was having just kind of like a fucked up sense of what was appropriate because of previous role models. I had a high school teacher who was white. This matters because at one time he told a joke using the N-word at school.
That's fucking crazy.
And it was a funny joke. It was a very good joke, but that completely nobody batted an eye at it, and like it was fine.
Nobody.
Yeah. And I was fine with it. It was a funny joke. It was a really good joke. And I mean like the real N-word, you know, like
like
you
R.
know, yeah.
Oh man.
And it was just like, and it was a small group of us kids, you know, but I was just like, that was fine. And so then getting to the corporate world and being an adult and be like, I guess this is fine too. You know, in reality, no, it's probably not fine at all. And all of this maybe should have been reported at some point to some level of HR. But it was just one of those things of like in my head, I'm like, well, I guess this is the way the world works. You know, it's just, you just kind of roll with it because it's like, well, I otherwise like this job. And, you know, these guys are all right besides some of the other stuff.
That's actually traumatizing. I mean, the things you saw were traumatizing. They were actually
I wouldn't say that.
I mean, I know you weren't affected by it because you're on a certain level of coolness or acceptability, which is admirable in a way. But nobody should put somebody through that not knowing. Like, you tell this story about the teacher telling the joke. Is that just stupidity? Is that utter lack of judgment? Like, what is that? Is that just audacity? What is that?
Oh, I mean, for that, I'd say like over familiarity, you know, a feeling like, oh, I can say this because I know you, you know, type deal. Cause it was like, oh, it's not like I'm some new kid. It's like, I've been going to school for 3 years now. And it's like, yeah, I know this teacher. It was definitely like, oh, you'll be okay with this. And I was, cause it was funny. I respect a good joke.
Shit.
But no, when it comes to work, it was inappropriate. You know, it should not have been happening. But then on the other side of it, you're like, well, I don't really want to make a stink about it. You know, it's and the other side being like, they're managers. It's not a coworker saying this. It's a supervisor. Right. It's a manager. It's like, who am I going to complain to?
It is always like a power thing for sure. Because I remember when I was working at Sears. There was like a female supervisor that was like, that wouldn't stop hitting on me.
Oh, wow.
And it was like the most annoying thing in the world. But like, no one's going to take this serious. First of all, I just knew no one was going to take this seriously. So like, whatever. It's also somebody above me, whatever. But it got crazy, man. Like it was like, I think the stock room. Yeah, once it got physical.
Wow.
Yeah. She groped me in like a stock room, and I was like, "Hey, ha."
Oh, ha. That's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, for me, I was like, I could kill this person. Like,
right.
If I really needed, like, if I really had to defend, I'm not in danger. It's kind of how I thought about it. You know what I mean? It's like, this is just like a really inappropriate thing for somebody to be doing, and it's really irritating. But I could probably like falcon punch this person to death in like a second. So I'm not scared, but it was irritating. I think she did that to so many people too. But she was like in that weird. That's like it's one of those rare instances, or maybe I don't know how rare it is, maybe, but like I do think it's like it really is a power thing, where like, because I remember being like, women do this.
Yeah.
What?
Wow.
What the hell? My whole understanding of the world is like completely upside down now. And it all came down to like, oh yeah, she was just above me, so she just did whatever. And it's just like, that really is how everything works, isn't it? It's upsetting.
That's
I quit that job pretty quick. I don't know. I hated that job anyway.
I mean, it's fucking Sears. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, fucking Sears.
Yeah, but how much did she luck out by Chris not reporting it? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
probably.
Because you don't know who you're dealing with.
At
This could get right back to you.
Yeah. I mean, part of me was also like, I really don't like this, but she seems like she's having a pretty rough go.
So I was like, sympathy.
I was like, you know what? I'm not here for long. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm not gonna work for 5 years at Sears. I was only there for like 11 months. I think it was like I was there for like exactly a year or something, or like maybe like a little bit less. And I didn't have to deal with it for too long. It was like maybe like 3 months max.
Yeah.
And it was like once or twice a month, something weird would happen, or she would say something. Working out.
You know what's insidious about that? It's timed. So it's not constant. It's almost like this. You get into this flow of like, all right, it's time to do this. I'm not going to do it daily. I don't want to make it,
Yeah, it was more about like the shifts that I would have. Like, because I had like I would work early all the time. I just think she just didn't want to do that. But like on rare occasions, I would be there like later on in the day, and that's kind of when it would happen. But that was like a really rare. That was like a rare occurrence when I just needed more money.
Yeah.
But yeah, stupid.
Yeah. No, it's a power thing. It is. I mean, I work. You know what's? I never think about this, but I worked in clothing retail when I first moved to Philly when I was in college, and the manager at that place, one of the managers, she was really hot. Older girl, and she was very flirtatious and would make innuendos to me all the time, especially in the back room. Never anything physical, and never anything overt enough to be construed as like everything was innuendo. Everything was like just sly enough. But you know what? It had to. She was hot. Like she was hot. I mean, she could get anybody she wanted. And if I was 19 at the time, she was 25. You know, but that really is a kind of case in point, though. It's a power thing. You know what I mean? It's just a power thing. She had power over somebody. I was an employee. She was a manager, an assistant manager, whatever she was. So it has to be that. It's exercising that power trip. That's that's how you get off or whatever.
Well, and it's even customers. When it comes to retail, the customers are even above you in a sense of like what you can get away with, because you've just reminded me of a distinct memory. It was the last time I ever wore my hair in pigtails, because I was working at GNC, and I was like 18, 19 years old, and I would just put my hair back. I had really long hair, and I would just put my hair back, while I was like stocking shelves and doing stuff. And this like dude came in and was like, really like those pigtails. And I remember being like, oh, no. And I never did my hair like that ever again. It was just like, nope. But it's like, you have these experiences working retail, it's like even the customers have more power than you do, because it's like, oh, you can't say anything back to them. You're really locked in of like, you want to keep my job, or do I just want to deal with this creepy old man?
Right.
And so it's like, you just have to put up with stuff, but it's awful. I just completely remember that. And like, it was the last time I ever put my hair up like that. It was like, no, thanks. Okay. Single ponytail for the rest of my life. Never mind.
Yeah. I don't know. I could not last long in that world, and I didn't. Specifically for that reason. I can tolerate a lot of things, but I can't tolerate customers.
That could be tough.
I can't do it. Like I remember there was this guy, it was like some like 40-year-old lady who was like trying to buy, she was like, there was a price label on the back of one of the cardboard displays that said 00 on it. Because like sometimes the first thing that you would print off of the label makers that we had were like just like a blank thing. It was like a 00, and you'd crumple it up or throw it somewhere. Somebody decided to put it on the back of the fucking display board, and then somebody was like, "Ooh, I want to buy this. It says it's $0." And they were like, "No." They came to me. It's like, "Hey, I want to buy this. It says it's free, basically." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You want the display, the cardboard display for the fucking Craftsman lawnmower? Why?" First off, why? Second of all, it's not. I assure you, it's not free if you wanted it. Maybe when we're done with it, if we're trying to dispose of it, you could come in and take it. I don't know why you would want this. And then she was like, "I want to see the manager." And I was like, "Okay, but they're not going to give this to you. I don't know what how you're expecting this day to end, but you're
That's
not going home with this
insane.
fucking unruly car. Why do you want this? Anyway, so I went to the manager, and then he came. He told me to tell her to fuck off. Like I think Sears was weird because like at that point when I worked at Sears, like it was still a company that you would want to like maintain some level of decorum, and you definitely didn't want to make problems for coworkers or complain to management about anything. But I did feel like there was just some level of disdain for the customers where they just didn't really. That was the only time that I ever saw in retail or otherwise where it did feel like the customers were still kind of below everybody.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because we would be like, yeah, we don't have it. And it's like, well, it says on the store that you have it. And I was like, well, or it says online that you have it. And I saw people be like, this isn't online. I don't know if you noticed. We're in a physical place. I'm sorry that the website lied to you. We're not the website though. So take it up with the website. And I remember hearing that kind of stuff all the time. Nobody cared. And it was great, to be honest. Like that part of it was awesome. Because like I never had to pretend really.
Yeah.
I was nice, but if people were like really obnoxious, I would just walk away usually.
Yeah. You're
just walk away.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Fools.
That was like the only thing that was good about that job.
Yeah, because every retail gig I've had is like the facade of the customer is king. And like on the inside, we all would talk shit about the customers in the break room, right? But like the managers were 100% like whatever the customer wants, like just give it to him. Like he wants you naked, get naked. Like they were just, they were really, I had a customer one time, he had over $100 worth of merchandise he wanted to return. We had a 30-day return policy, pretty generous, okay? He comes in with 3 months later with all the stuff and the receipt. And so I look at the receipt and just say, I'm sorry, we have a 30-day return policy. He freaks out. And the manager just immediately just refunds it all, gives the guy's money back. And it's just like, then why even have a policy type deal if basically the policy is whatever the customer wants, just give it to them. It's like I hated retail for that reason of like, man, like I do my best to follow the rules in life. And like this guy just like, you're just like, no rules for you. Come back next time, please. And like she actually apologized like, oh, I'm so sorry that she said no to your return. It's like, well, I mean, it's like my job to say no type deal. It's like, you told me to say no. It's on the receipt.
Right.
It was like, I hated retail so much because of all that.
I'll never forget one quick story. I remember, I think it was like maybe 2 months before I quit. One of the other salespeople, I think it was like somebody from downstairs, quit because they were like, there was a discrepancy with their pay or something, which I wasn't concerned with at the time because I was just like happy to get anything. I wasn't paying any expenses or anything, so I was like, whatever, fucking steal from me, I don't care. But he quit and he was shouting in the manager's office. They were shouting. You could hear it throughout the store. And I remember he's to our boss, he goes, "You're fat, you're retarded, and I'm out of here." and that was the last. It's the last I ever heard from him. I think his name was Cody. But it was the funniest. And you have to understand, it echoed. It like echoed through like the hallway that you would like store. Like there were different rooms that you would store different things in. One was for like electronics, one was mattresses, and then like there was like a kind of like a cement store, and then there was a store. You're fat, you're retarded, and I'm out of here. I think about that all the time.
That's the best parting shot ever.
Yeah.
And if you're around that, that's the entertainment you're looking for when you're working retail.
Oh, exactly.
$7 an hour.
It's the benefit of working a real job, I would say, is really just kind of having those experience. And I'm not saying this isn't real work, but like, where you're out and dealing with people on a day to day.
Yeah.
That's the real benefit of it, is that you come away from, like, I definitely have fewer stories today as a result of just not having to go out and deal with people.
Yeah.
So I try to go out every day. I try to walk down into downtown and people watch. But
that's cool. You do that every day?
I try to. I'm going to do it
awesome.
probably immediately after this is over.
Oh, that's
grab
awesome,
a coffee.
Dude. Yeah, there's something about that. It's also fodder for comedy or creativity, just seeing things, experiencing things. You know how it is.
Totally.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, working retail, I worked a lot of retail. I always felt like you did suffer a lot of abuse, but I always felt like you could just find a way to get the person out of the store. The worst for me was waiting tables, because you have to deal with people. If they're abusive, it's like an hour-long commitment, and you really no way to get out of it unless you give your table off to somebody else. But then you're kind of telegraphing, all right, this is a problem, I can't handle it, that type of thing. Waiting tables was so bad for me, and I was so bad at it that I had to immediately, which was instantly agreed upon by the rest of the wait staff, by the way, because I think we pulled tips, was to make me a busboy so I could help but not deal directly with the customers, and then they would tip me out.
Right.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Bar backing and bussing rather than waiting was great. But dealing with the customers, I was too sensitive for it. You know what I mean? If people were abusive, I took it personally, that type of thing. And people,
I just wasn't. I'm not cut out for it either. I acknowledge that, like, I'm just not good at that. Like, I am not a good server. I worked at Applebee's for like a day, and like, and I got in trouble immediately. I got fired immediately because I don't have it in me to placate strangers. Like, I don't have that at all. Like, if it's people I like, I'll usually bend over backwards to people please the people that I like and enjoy around me. But like strangers, I could give a fuck. I really. Remember, some guy was like, my water's cold, but he had a Coke. He had a Coke with ice, and I was like, just put some of the ice from the Coke in there. And the manager was like, you can't tell him to do that. I was like, it's probably what I would do. Pragmatic. And they're like, you gotta go. I was like, okay, fair. I wasn't even like angry about it. I was like, I think I knew in my heart that like this was not going to work.
Yeah.
This is not going to work.
You just
out.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Chris, were you on when I said I was waiting tables? I was trained by like a career professional waitress. And at the end of my second shift shadowing her, and her boyfriend was the head bartender, I remember. She brought me over with him and to tell me that you're absolutely not cut out for this. You should leave. Like, you can't. I didn't even start yet. I was just shadowing her. And in defiance is the only reason that she was completely right, by the way, 100% right.
Right.
In defiance is the only reason I kept the job. And then I would get in the weeds with like more than 3 tables. If I had more than 3 tables, I'd be like, I'm fucked. Like, I can't do this. I can't multitask like this. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And yeah. But she was mean. You know what I mean? But she knew. She just knew.
Yeah. It's not a space for people like us, I think. It's just not it's too much. It's too much chaos, but it's too like I can function in chaos, but it needs to be true chaos.
Okay.
Like, it needs to be like no holds barred. It can't be this like this structured chaos where it's like, ooh, everything in the kitchen is chaotic, but it's in the kitchen, and it's like, oh, there's chaos in the main room, but it's like it's all just there, and it's like it's this facade that I can't get over. Where it's like, why are we pretending like any of this is functioning the way it's supposed to? I can't.
That's an interesting way to put it. That is an interesting way to put it.
If shit's going down in the street, I'm out there. I'm flourishing, man. I remember people like freaking out. I can't remember what it was. It was like something like some light show going on Rockefeller Center, and they closed the street down, but not the sidewalk, and people were piling into the streets. It was absolute chaos, but it was like so much. It was like cars coming by and like cops coming in. It was like, get out of here. And like just people wall to wall, chest to back, like piled. And I was laughing so hard. Because my mom was behind me, and she's like 4'11", and she was cursing up a storm, and I've never heard her do that, really. She's like, what the fuck? That was one of the best. That's probably the second hardest time I ever laughed, I think. Outside of my friend slapping that baby in the face, was taking my mom to Rockefeller Center to see the fucking light show, where people were like, my back. Because everybody was pressed into each other. I'll never forget this one woman who was like, my baby, in that exact way. And my mom was like, why'd you bring your baby in here? It was, I love that chaos. I love that. But like, if it's that type of chaos, but then like, oh, go clock in.
Yeah.
Oh, make sure you leave the receipt in this booklet exactly this way. No, you can't have it. Your cake and eat it too, man. You can't do that.
Yeah. We need real Christmas time Rockefeller Plaza tree.
My baby.
My baby.
I'll never forget it.
Well, listen, if you guys are comfortable on that note, You did my
It's good.
NSFW topic. More than justice. So look,
Yeah.
that'll bring us to the end of yet another episode of Constellation. I feel like we got through that one quick. Having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
do the old parting shots and goodbyes. You guys know how we do it as we head into the weekend here. Micah, I'll start with you. I bid you a fond farewell.
Oh, thank you. This turned into one of those memes where it's like you shared something that you thought was funny and everyone was like, are you all right? Dagan being like, these stories would be traumatizing to a young woman. It's like, oh, okay. Let's laugh about it some more. It was just one of those funny moments of like, yeah, maybe. You know what? In hindsight, this was not good at all. But thanks for having me. Literally, my cheeks hurt from laughing so much. This has been a joy of an episode.
It was fun. Well, I mean, you were a big part of it. I mean, there's a nice dynamic going on to this specific group. I enjoyed it too. That was fun. And listen, time went quick. That's the most telling part. Chris, always a pleasure to have you on the show. How do you want to wrap this up, my friend?
Oh man, I don't know. I'm probably gonna go get myself a horchata cold brew from this place that I go to.
What?
Yeah, dude. Oh my god. Do you know what horchata is, right? I've met people who have not had horchata.
Just found out.
It's like cinnamon milk drink.
It's like rice milk and cinnamon. It's kind of like I don't know how to describe it other than that. It's really good. But I go to this place that puts coffee in it, and it's basically like half a cup of coffee and half a cup of horchata or something like that. I haven't exactly looked at the mix, and it is so fucking delicious that I have a problem now. And I get it. I get it pretty much every other day. I love it. It's a good walk too. It's about like a 20-minute walk from where I'm at, so it's nice. And it's also jacket weather today, so I can exist comfortably. I like jackets, so I'm probably gonna. I don't know. I got a lot to do today. Actually, Derek is in town. The guy I do the Snark Tank with, or one of them, he's in town looking for a place. So he's seeing apartments today, so that we can get together and do that show in person in this room. We're gonna rebuild the entire room.
Yeah,
you guys are gonna do it.
I want to do it. I want to do in-person shows. Like I think it's just there's better energy. It's easier to read the room. There's more fodder for comedy because you can actually physically interrupt. I think it'll be fun. But yeah, so it's busy couple weeks ahead, but I'm excited about it.
Oh, that's awesome. You guys are living the dream. That's we talk about that a lot, but the practicality of it for LSM, it just isn't, we're kind of spread to the four winds. So, but I agree, Chris, that's the way to do it if you can. And, just a little bit of house cleaning. You guys may have noticed by now, 3.5 hours in, Colin's not with us today. We didn't depose the dictator. He's still around. There was no coup yet. He just has another podcast to do today with Dustin. And who else is he doing it with?
Oh, Brad and Gene.
Brad and Gene.
Look at that crew.
They're doing the Stellar Blade show.
Sorry. The A-team. Sorry. We'll hold it.
It's a shame. It is a shame. Like I was thinking, like when Cog was here, it was a shame because if Gene was here, we could have had the DEI cast. Could have been the Dagan and the minorities.
I thought that's where Dagan was going with it at the beginning when he was like, I got an interesting crew here today. And I'm like, yes, the minorities are all here. And that's not where he took it. So I was like, all right, keep that
funny. You know what? I wonder how many people thought that. And I should have probably.
I don't know.
That.
We'll see.
But guys,
I should have known that.
I'm colorblind.
Yeah, you
wouldn't
see
that stuff.
I thought that's where you were going with it, but then I was like, nah, Dagan's too kind-hearted. He wouldn't even. That thought wouldn't even enter his mind. But of course, it was the first thing on my mind the second I got in here. I was like, look at us.
That's hilarious. Oh, my God. Well, listen, that's all she wrote, Constellation Faithful. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you had a fun time. I tend to think, you guys, that the mark of a good podcast is how much you as listeners yell at your phone or your computer screen. So I hope you yelled a lot today. Patreon.com/laststandmedia for ad-free early access. If you want to be among the first to shout your amens in agreement or holler how stupid we are, the Patreon is for you. Laststandmedia.store for a t-shirt or listen to this now, you can buy a shitload of stickers and plaster them on your neighbor's car. They'll thank you for it. They're probably fans anyway. You just beat them to it. Look at it that way. Tell them Dagan sent you For Micah, Chris, Cog, I'm still the Dagster, Moriarty, saying thank you once again for joining us. And we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.
Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.